Greetings and salutations. I'm the fallen angel Christopher Daniels.
Hello, yes, Danhausen here, to tell you, deliver a very nice, very evil message, if you will.
This is NXT superstar Dexter Lumis.
What's up, everybody? It's me, your buddy, your pal, Scott Stanford.
Hey, this is Big Sexy Kevin Nash.
This is the former intellectual savior of the masses, now known as Aaron Stevens, your NWA third-degree national champion.
This is Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, the role model, and you are listening to Greg Morgan with Good Mic Work Commentaries.
And I want to tell you, Greg, your buddy Howie, also known as Wheezy, as you call him, told me all about your channel. I'm here to tell everybody that I've seen it, I've watched it, I've looked at it. I went down the rabbit hole and I couldn't get out of it. It was so good.
Yeah, you better watch this channel. You better watch all the videos.
I'm about to go and watch a few videos myself.
Watch them 5 times a piece. That's right, I said 5 times a piece. Do it.
I know you've been a fan for like 40 years. I've only been doing it for 30, so I guess we're fans together there for 10 of it.
Do it.
He's not going to fill your head with bullshit. He's going to tell you real deal, what's up, and that's that.
Do it!
Good Mic Work is the place to be for all your wrestling information, guaranteed.
The best wrestling content is right here at Good Mic Work Commentary.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Check out Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Check out Good Mic Work Commentaries on YouTube.
Subscribe, share, love, like, poke, whatever you need to do.
If you don't, we're gonna have a problem.
Love that, Danhausen. Love that Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Do it now.
You're welcome.
What's up going on, everyone? Welcome to the Winged Eagle podcast for January 23rd, 2021. I appreciate you being here. Happy Saturday to everybody once again. And we have got a big, loaded, juicy episode for you with all sorts of stuff to get into. Of course, I am your host, Good Bernie Work. I'll be with you here all afternoon long. And we got a ton of stuff to get into today, man. We got lots of wrestling news. We have a couple of sad deaths to report, lots of wrestling results to get into, including a Royal Rumble preview, the full card, participants for this year's matches, and what's going to be happening going into WrestleMania now that we have some plans in place for that in terms of when it's happening and what's going to go on there. And we got a lot of speculation. So unlike last week's episode, I think this week's episode is going to be chock full of a lot of good stuff. I'll go ahead and get to where we're supposed to be here so I can see you. That was my little Bernie joke. I could not resist getting involved in that Bernie Mame stuff. That was a lot of fun this week on Twitter, watching all the different renditions of that. But I had mentioned last week's podcast just a minute ago because I'm still laughing about it. For those of you who joined in with the Winged Eagle last week, it was probably one of the more pointless podcasts I've ever done because I didn't really have a whole lot to talk about. It was a light news week and the wrestling results were just so-so. So I decided to focus the main top story of the podcast on WrestleMania speculation, what myself and all of you think WWE should do for this show, and should there be fans there and all that type of stuff. And literally in the middle of the podcast, as we're speaking, WWE releases the big information and big news with the Triple H and Stephanie skit and all of that about WrestleMania being at Raymond James, being pushed back a couple of weeks, and they also announced the next 2 WrestleMania locations as well for 38 and 39. So that was a lot of information, and we got that in the middle of the podcast, rendering the podcast immediately obsolete. So I didn't even bother posting the audio or anything like that on the podcast sites because I would have sounded stupid talking about all of that on the same day that the information was released. So kind of bad timing there. Wish I would have bumped last week's podcast to Sunday so we could have talked about that a little bit more in depth, but that's kind of the way it goes when you do live shows and stuff. So this week, man, I got a good amount of notes here in this episode. Here's what you guys can expect in this episode. We're going to, of course, talk about the Undertaker's appearance on the Joe Rogan Experience. Lots of information coming out on that, from that, including some very controversial comments that The Undertaker made, including WWE's product and what his definition of a real man is, things like that. So we'll get into a little bit of that. We'll also talk about the future of NXT. There's some big news dropping on the cancellation, I guess, of NBC Sports, and that's going to move a lot of programming to the USA Network, which could have a drastic effect on NXT's future on Wednesdays. So we'll get into that. We've got an update on WrestleMania as well. Aleister Black. We've got to pay our respects to Hank Aaron and Larry King, two big, Turner legends, really, that passed away just a couple of days apart. We've got AEW, NXT, and SmackDown results from last night to get into as well. And like I said, the current Rumble card, the participants, and who might win these matches, and what the plans might be going into WrestleMania, even though it's way too early to be too certain about anything. It's always fun to speculate. So we'll be getting into all that in this episode. I tried to time this to where it would be done, at least on, be done on the East Coast prior to the big UFC pay-per-view. I think it's UFC 257 tonight. Big Conor McGregor fight, so I know a lot of eyeballs will be on that. So I wanted to make sure we got up here, had our podcast and our discussion before any of that started tonight for those of you who would like to watch that. Now, I am not an MMA follower, really. I follow a little bit of it, but not much. I don't really know who anybody is. I don't even know who Conor McGregor's opponent is. Never heard of him before. Apparently, they've fought before. So I don't like Conor McGregor. I just hope he gets his ass kicked, and I'm certainly not going to buy and give Dana White or Conor McGregor any of my money. So you guys can let me know on Twitter tonight who winds up winning that fight, but I know a lot of eyeballs are going to be on that, so I didn't want to get in the way of that. I also have a scheduling announcement to make about tomorrow. Now, tomorrow, most of you know this, who joined us last Sunday for our Royal Rumble 2005 match watch-along. That was really fun. We watched the whole match, the whole botch with Cena and Batista and Vince coming out and blowing out his legs and the whole deal. If you want to check that video out, it's up on the channel right now. Tomorrow, we're going to do another one, only this time we're going to watch the entire pay-per-view. It's going to be Royal Rumble 2002. We're going to watch the whole thing, and I'll put a link to that up later on tonight, so you can find that on my channel. However, for those of you who live here in the United States, tomorrow is Championship Sunday in the NFL. That's big day. The NFC and NFC Championship games that determines the Super Bowl will be taking place tomorrow. So I'm not going to get in the way of that in terms of the watch-along. So the plan is to come up here when the games are over. So I'll be up here probably 7 p.m. Pacific time, 10 p.m. on the East Coast, because tomorrow's games are 3:05 and 6:40 Eastern. Those are the two times for the two games tomorrow, so I don't want to go head-to-head with any of that stuff, especially if they're close, and a lot of you guys love to watch that stuff, so do I. So we'll be up here after that. Now, last week when I came up at 8 Pacific, 11 Eastern, that was a little bit too late for everybody, so I'm sorry about coming up late tomorrow, but I still think that would be better than trying to go head-to-head with one of these football games. So if you guys are into staying up late tomorrow night, come join us, and we'll be watching Royal Rumble 2002 all the way through from start to finish. That should be fun heading into Royal Rumble season. And then after that, I got a couple of other videos planned at the end of January as well, which we'll get into this weekend. You'll see me tomorrow, and you're also going to see me Monday night after Raw for our weekly Raw reviews. So that should be all of the updates I need to give you guys. We're going to get into the wrestling news first, open up with the Undertaker stuff, then we'll talk a little bit about NXT. There's some really interesting new signees by WWE, a handful of indie women wrestlers that have come in. That's going to be a big deal for them, so we'll talk a little bit about that as well. And, of course, we'll pay our respects to Hank Aaron and Larry King, and then we'll get into AEW Dynamite. We'll get into NXT. We'll talk about last night's SmackDown. We got a preview for Monday's Raw with Goldberg and McIntyre going face-to-face. And then we'll wrap everything up with some Royal Rumble discussion. And at the very end of the podcast, stay tuned for all of you gamers out there. I have questions. I have been trying to navigate and learn my way around Twitch. Twitch is a platform I've never explored because I'm not a modern gamer. I don't have an Xbox or a PlayStation or any of that stuff. But I know that a lot of people use Twitch, and you don't necessarily have to be on it to play video games. I do have old school video games like classic NESs and Sega Genesis and 2600s and things like that. I have purchased the equipment that I need to stream that stuff. I've got a game capture, and I'm going to start working on that in the next couple of weeks. But I also have some questions for those of you who are Twitch savvy and know the site really well. I'm not going to bore you guys with any of that stuff right now. We'll just hang out and do that at the end. That way, if anybody doesn't care, they don't have to stick around. But I know a lot of you guys have reached out to me throughout the years and offered help in Twitter DMs and stuff like that. So I just have a couple of questions because I've never used the platform before. I'm trying to learn it, trying to get accustomed to it, and it seems like a really weird place. So we'll talk about that later on. But what I'm trying to do is get a Good Mic Work Twitch channel set up to where maybe it can just be a fun play around channel where I'll come up here and stream some Mario, or we'll do some random watch alongs, or I'll play some wrestling games, pro wrestling, WrestleMania, Royal Rumble on Genesis, Raw on Super Nintendo, things like that. I could play some wrestling games as well. and maybe make it a fun kind of off to the side channel for the commentaries here. So stay tuned if you want to listen to my thoughts on what I have planned for that, and you might be able to help me out answering a couple of random questions I have, just general gaming questions that I have for you guys. Could probably help me out. So anyway, we'll talk about that later on, and we'll jump into, like I said, the wrestling news here. But first, I want to shout out the Patreon supporters, and I want to knock out these super chats, and then we'll get to rolling here. We got some new Patreon subscribers coming in this month. I want to welcome and thank Nikita Abalekin. Appreciate that very much. Chris Miner, you're kind of new as well. So is Super Fluffy Toaster, and Deshaun Robinson. Also, big thank you to J Smooth 1999, Martin Can, Alex Drudge, Apron Bump Podcast, Alan Carter, Brandon Yelverton, Michael Tong, Nick Musser, Jimmy Anderson, K Dogs Kennel, Ryan Y, Devlin Husband, Antoine Daniels, John Redifer, Claudio Clavedetcher, Daniel Rodriguez, Reese Jones, Barry MK400, Josiah, Mr. Steve, Scott Moss, John Riffle, Michael Kumo, Naveed, Keith Salyers, Nathan Walker, and Blake Moran. I appreciate your support as always. And to Deshaun and Antoine, your Brody Lee t-shirts from the Brody Lee tribute and giveaway we did a couple of weeks ago are in the mail. You should get them Monday. So keep a lookout, Monday or Tuesday at the latest. You're both on the East Coast, but I dropped those in the mail on Thursday, so you should have them at any time. And thanks as always to everybody that supports on Patreon. If you'd like to help out the channel, you can do so. Link is right in the description below. And I know I got some super chats to knock out as well, so we'll do that, and then we can get cracking on the news. Also, do me a big favor, smash that thumbs up button for me if you don't mind, trying to get those likes up in 2021. Some videos have been pretty good, and you guys have been awesome. Others, y'all don't seem to give a shit. So if you could hit the thumbs up, I'd appreciate it. Thank you, George Morris, for the $5, and good to see you. Hey, Greg, how are you doing? Looking forward to the watch-along tomorrow, and I will be watching it with my 3 cats, Sawyer and Strudel and Simba. Right on. Buzz Sawyer, Saba Simba, and I don't know any Strudel. Ooh, the Rock Strudel, maybe. That's awesome. Tomorrow night should be fun. Royal Rumble 2002 was an interesting show. I watched it on pay-per-view. That was the big Triple H return. And we had a title match. I think it was Rock and Jericho on the undercard, along with a couple of other things. A lot of returns in that year's Royal Rumble. Very interesting time as well. The NWO was a month away from coming in. WrestleMania 18 was on the horizon. Austin walking out was about to happen. We were right off the heels of the Invasion angle. Really, really interesting time. So that will be a fun pay-per-view to just watch, hang out, shoot the shit, talk while it's happening. And I'd like to start doing more of those. Maybe incorporate, some random classic pay-per-view watch-alongs, because that was fun when we did the Royal Rumble last week, and I think tomorrow will be fun as well. So I would like to incorporate more of that, and maybe even do some of that on the Twitch channel once it gets up and running. So that'll be the plan there. But still got a ways to go on setting all that up. There's Nikita right there, Patreon supporter. Appreciate you chiming in with the super chat as well. Is Retribution going to invade the podcast tonight? I don't think so. Oh, yeah, Retribution. Yeah, T-Bar quote tweeted me the other night. It was kind of funny. I didn't even really mean it. I was tweeting on Monday night, because I don't like Retribution. I think the faction is stupid, but I really like Mustafa Ali. I really like Dominik Dijakovic, and I just don't like the gimmick that they're in. I don't like the T-Bar, and I don't like the dumb nicknames. I'm not even a fan of the music, which some people corrected me on, said that Retribution music slaps, but I just guess I've always just been so resistant to the faction in general, I haven't liked it. So I wrote down a list of like 10 things that I hated about Retribution, and then on the very bottom I wrote things that I like about Retribution. Mustafa Ali. Well, T-Bar took exception to that, but I think he knew I was messing around. I think he knew that I wasn't coming across as some bitter, entitled asshole that's just attacking him, because he barks at a bunch of people online, and they're so rude, and they're such jerk-offs. I made that tweet for likes. I kind of thought it was funny that there's so many shitty things about Retribution, but Mustafa Ali is a pretty damn good wrestler, and I just, kind of want better for him, as I do want better for Dominik. But he did compliment me and said that there's one thing he likes about me, aside from all the stupid things he hates about me, like my stupid name, my podcast that nobody watches, my tweet that nobody reads, although he read it and he wasn't tagged in it, and a whole bunch of other incorrect things. But he did say that he liked my bald head. So us bald guys are sticking together. But I think T-Bar in the end knows I meant no harm, and it was kind of a fun exchange. So yeah, maybe we'll see if Retribution members are tuning in. We'll have to be nice to them today on this week's episode. Crash, thanks for the $2 as well. In July, it'll be 10 years since I started watching you. Jesus, man. 10 years. Man, me and you have been together for 10 years. What kind of present am I supposed to get you? I think 10 years is like a really nice necklace or diamond or something, right? I'll start shopping. Barry, you're here as well. Good to see you, man. Appreciate the 2. I'm out of the loop. What's the joke on the old guy? Oh, you don't know what that's about? That's actually kind of funny. How in the world have you missed that? That's like the only thing happening in the world right now is the Bernie Sanders memes. Yeah, that's Bernie Sanders, Barry. He was photographed just kind of sitting there like that at the inauguration. It was the funniest picture in the world, and people are photoshopping him into everything that you can possibly imagine. I think the funniest one I retweeted on my channel was the scene from Ghost where Demi Moore is making the pottery and her and Patrick Swayze like get it on to that song, but instead it's Bernie Sanders behind her, and he's coming around her with the mittens and making the pottery. It's fantastic. There's another one putting him like an arm bar, in a UFC octagon. There's so many. It's great. Barry, surf around Twitter. You can't miss it, literally. Deshaun, you're here as well. Appreciate the $2, man. WWE told talent they will not provide the vaccine. I saw that. That was one of the stories I really wasn't going to talk about because I didn't think it was that big of a deal. But I did read that WWE is going to be on their own for receiving the vaccine, and it's not going to be distributed through WWE. I think that's a little odd, especially the way WWE, all of us. It's funny how they get to pick and choose when they want to treat their talent as independent contractors. How fucked up is that? So, based on everything WWE does, the way they control your life, they change your name, they tell you when you can wipe your ass. All of a sudden now they're not going to distribute this vaccine to their talent that are on a weekly basis putting at risk, at work in this environment. It's absolutely crazy that they're not doing that. But I think, probably if they're not doing it, it has nothing to do with them not trying to help the talent or anything. There's probably just some legal reason why they can't, and it might fuck up that independent contractor line that they walk there that they shouldn't even be allowed to. But now that we have a new administration, maybe Andrew Yang can get some shit done in regards to that. But that is pretty shitty, at least on the surface when you hear that out loud. What the fuck? WWE's not going to use their resources to get their talent a vaccine? I don't know why they would not want to do that. So, yeah, pretty messed up. But that's the way it goes. Storm, Adam, appreciate the 5 as well. I'm very surprised on Taker's take on the WWE locker room, though it's not a surprise to me. That being said, my beers are ready to go. Let's do this. Good mic work. Appreciate that, Storm, and I will cheers to you because it's Saturday afternoon, and even I'm drinking a beer because my restaurant's been closed all month. I have not worked at all this year in 2021 because of the lockdown here in California, but I will be back to work in a week. It's probably going to be slow going there for a little while, but by the time we get to spring and summer, I'll be back balls to the wall. But I've not been working much, so Saturday afternoon beer it is. When I say not working, that's not exactly true. I've been doing a ton of stuff with YouTube and all that, and I've been keeping myself busy and even trying to do other things like Twitch and shit like that. So I've at least been making use of my time and trying to at least put the extra time that I have not being at the restaurant, putting that into the channel instead. So we'll see if it pays off. Spaz Phoenix with a very generous $20 drop. Appreciate it, man. Everybody go over to Spaz Phoenix's YouTube channel right now. He's a good guy. Give him a subscription if you want some good, casual, laid-back chat. He's the guy to go to hear that. What do you say here? COVID killed me, and I escaped to the virtual world of YouTube, reviewing extra NXT content from 205 Live, SmackDown, movie TV reviews, and Black Cat Feline NXT stuff with Jake, and AEW stuff with Guapo. Right on. So Spaz He's passed on. He is now in digital form, and you can find him on the interwebs. Just go over to his channel right now. You can hear all that good stuff on his channel over there. 2 more coming in from you right after that as well. I almost lost you. Live react to Heroes of Wrestling. That is really weird that you said that, Spaz. I had that very same thought last night. Last night, I said I should react to Heroes of Wrestling because I can probably watch it. I can probably have it on the screen without any copyright issues, I think. So, because I don't even know who the fuck owns that and who, if it even matters. So I thought that very same thought. We might be doing that. I want to do some more live reactions because they're easy to do and they're fun. So we'll be doing more of that hopefully here. Zane G is in the house as well with $5. Appreciate it, man. What up, Mike Work? Happy 37th anniversary to the birth of Hulkamania. That's right. January 23rd, 1984. Hulk Hogan beat the Iron Sheik. A lot of people think of Hulk Hogan every year on January 23rd. I do not. I think of X-Pac. 1, 2, 3. Right? But yeah, that's a date that's always stuck out in my head. I've always known about January 23rd, 1984 for some reason. It's just really, really vivid in my memories. And I remember when Hogan won the title. That was a big deal 37 years ago. Damn, that is a long time ago. Am I really that old? Shit, God. Thanks for reminding me how old I am and how close I am to the end, Zane. Appreciate it. Tigerzilla Game, appreciate the $5 as well. Hey, Steve Austin, how you doing? I'm doing just fine. This is Fractured Skull Sessions here on the Good Mike Work YouTube channel. I should have opened a Stone Cold beer. I have some cold. For some reason, I opened one of these. This one's not as strong. Well, actually, yeah, it is. It's 7%. Yeah, why am I not drinking a Broken Skull? I'm an idiot. All right, Super Chats are coming in. I'm going to try to knock these out here so we can get into the news, but I appreciate everybody rocking them out today. This is great. Spaz Phoenix, thank you again for 5 more, dude. Women's Rumble should end with Alexa Bliss choking out Bianca Belair. I think Alexa Bliss is going to win the title. I think she beat Asuka on Monday night. I think you're going to get that match at the Royal Rumble, Asuka against Alexa Bliss. So Alexa, is she... Actually, I've got it in my notes. I have all the participants for the Rumble in my notes. Is she listed for the Rumble? She's not. Nia, Shayna, Charlotte, Bayley, Bianca, Mandy, Dana, Peyton, Alexa, Ruby, Liv, and Tamina I've got so far. So no Alexa Bliss. She's definitely facing Asuka. So if she wasn't, though, then yeah, I'd be totally into Alexa Bliss winning that. That would be interesting. She's got an interesting character, man. I love that shit we saw on Monday. And if she does take the belt from Asuka, I wouldn't even be that bummed out about it. I'd be like actually all right with it. Hey, AJ Daniels, what's up, man? Appreciate the $10. Like I said earlier, your T-shirt is in the mail. Hopefully you'll get that on Monday. And I appreciate the very generous super chat there. I don't know if you saw this, but a tweet is taking off, and cancel culture is trying to get Undertaker for hitting Canyon with a chair and saying he's homophobic for it. What do you think? I wasn't aware of that tweet yet, Antoine. I'll have to take a look. I'd have to just see the context of that. Undertaker hit, so people are saying because he hit Canyon with a chair really hard, he's homophobic or something. Undertaker's blasted a lot of people with chairs. As a matter of fact, tomorrow night when we watch the Royal Rumble 2002, he absolutely splatters the face of Maven with a chair harder than anybody I've ever seen take a chair shot. And, you know, what he did to Shawn Michaels at Bad Blood 1997 was nothing to shake a stick at either. That was one of the sickest chair shots I've also ever seen at the climax of the first ever Hell in the Cell match, where Shawn just took oh my God, just sickening sound of chair meets bone. But I'll have to look a little bit more into that. But I don't want to see it. I'm going to have my opinions on the Undertaker here in a minute, but I don't want to see a situation to where Undertaker says something that a lot of people don't agree with, ruffles some feathers, and then everybody just starts piling on random shit. So if it's a case of that, then I'll have to look at it and judge for myself. But I wasn't aware of that yet, Antoine. But I'll take a look for sure. Feel free to tag me in a tweet or something, and I'll read it. Tigerzilla Game, appreciate 5 more from you as well. Yes, Heroes of Wrestling, the greatest pay-per-view ever. What is this WrestleMania 17 you speak of? Right. I think I've only seen clips of it. I don't even think I've seen it. All I know is it's terrible. All I know is it's one of the worst things that's ever been videotaped and played back for people. And yeah, that might be fun. Might be brutal, though. You guys are torturing me. We'll see. Spaz with 5 more. Casey Catanzaro and Caden Carter are like the Bucks, but good. They impress me. I can't wait to talk about their match, because on Wednesday when I was making my notes during NXT and AEW, I saw that match start. And like I do most times, and I probably have about an 80 to 90% success rate here, when a match starts and I'm writing my notes, I wrote in Tony and Mercedes defeat Casey and Caden. That's what I wrote as the match was starting, because I just assumed that they were going to win, but they didn't. And that was cool about this week's NXT, is pretty much, I guess in all the Dusty matches they had, I think there was 3, 2 men's and a women's, it felt like the underdogs won in all of them. And that's cool. I like that. So yeah, we'll be getting into that later on. And all right, and there's a final 10 more from Spaz, and maybe I can get into the news now. Thanks again, guys, for all those super chats. That was great. Miz wins the Rumble, fails against Drew and Mania, cashes in the case on Roman, and gets a sneaky win. Next night on SmackDown, he gives it back to Roman, makes Jay team with him. Miz and Jey Uso are your tag team champions. That is elaborate. Let me read that again. Miz wins Rumble, fails against Drew at Mania. Okay. Cashes in the case on Roman. So at Mania, he cashes in the case in a sneaky win. Next night, he gives it back to Roman, makes Jay team with him. Makes Jay team. It seems like the Miz is in the driver's seat here. Would the Miz really forfeit a title? I think, and is Roman going to be okay with that? Like, if he cashes in on Roman and he takes advantage of Roman and he screws Roman, I don't even think Roman's character would accept the belt. He still wants to, he'd be pissed at the Miz. He'd want to kill the Miz. So if he did that and Miz says, okay, I'll give you the title on the condition that I team with Jey Uso, and Roman being cool with that, it still feels like Roman's going to owe the Miz a fucking knuckle sandwich, man. So that's an interesting take on it. But they wouldn't have given the Miz the briefcase back if they don't have plans for that thing to be cashed in, man. I just don't want to see it nowhere we're going to see it. I almost prefer, I'll tell you this, probably the only place I'd be okay with it is if it saves McIntyre from having to lose to Goldberg or something. I'd rather have the Miz come out of Rumble with the title than Goldberg. I'd rather have Drew come out of it, but if it's down to either Miz or Goldberg, I'm picking Miz, man. Storm Adam, appreciate 2 more from you as well. Spaz Phoenix about to pay this man's rent. Almost. If you just do about, about 200 more of those, yeah, you'll pay my rent for this month. But no, Spaz is awesome. He's always in here supporting and being the man. You what, M8? Appreciate the 5 as well. How would you honestly react if Goldberg wins this match against Drew McIntyre? I ain't going to react good, but I'll tell you what, you're going to find out how I'm going to react, because we're going to react to the Royal Rumble. I think I've been mentioning that, but I didn't mention it yet in this podcast. Week from tomorrow is Royal Rumble on the 31st. I'm going to live react to it here on the channel. So we usually do that for all the Royal Rumbles. I did it last year as well. It's a really fun pay-per-view to react to, because you essentially get 60 surprises in one show with the two 30-participant matches. So, and the Goldberg and the McIntyre match is going to definitely be interesting. And if Goldberg wins, I'm going to have a huge mental breakdown, and you guys will get to witness that live on YouTube, record it, and show it to people after I'm locked up. So keep that in mind. Michael Kumo, appreciate 5 from you as well. Loved when Undertaker told Joe Rogan, leave your values behind when you move to Texas. Sarcasm, yeah. Oh, yeah, because Rogan's a big Texas guy, too. A lot of people are migrating to Texas. A lot of people are leaving California and going to Texas just because, it's better there in terms financially for a lot of people. It's expensive here, man. 2 more from Spaz. Goldberg wins the title. Brock wins the Rumble. Yikes. I do have some ideas for Brock. We'll talk about that later. And 5 more from Zane as well. Spaz, let me get some of that stimulus. Yeah, that's Canadian stimulus though, G. He's got a different stimulus. I don't know what they get up there. I'm still waiting for mine. Got to check my bank. Anyway, let's get on to the news here like I've been promising for a while. Thank you again to everybody for the great questions, the great super chats, and all of that. I think we can officially get into business now that we've been going for a while. And like I said, we're going to open up with the news. And I think the top story of the week was The Undertaker's appearance on the Joe Rogan Experience. I didn't even know he was booked for this. I don't know if anybody did. He just kind of surprised us all. He was on there for nearly 3 hours, talked about a lot of stuff. I like the Joe Rogan podcast. I especially find myself listening to it when he's got like physicists and scientists and shit like that. I'm just really fascinated with like space and the universe and things like that. So I'm always interested when he's got guys like Brian Cox and others on his show. So I do find myself watching it quite often. And I like Joe Rogan, and I knew, The Undertaker was on the Broken Skull Sessions, and that was mostly focused on his career, and that was all great. But when The Undertaker goes on these other sort of talk shows where he's kind of allowed to say whatever he wants, even though him and Steve could have talked about pretty much anything they wanted to, you're still on WWE's under their umbrella there. So when the chains are completely broken there, and you can go do and say and whatever you want. And Joe Rogan's podcast is also known for being very, but very blunt in some respects. They don't really hold back on anything they say, and sometimes it can create controversy and sometimes it can't. But The Undertaker had a lot of things to say on this show. He talked about a lot of his career. All that stuff I enjoyed when he talked about him getting started. All stories we've heard before, but hearing him talk about this in this setting is still kind of weird for The Undertaker, who we've known for all these years, to be in an environment like this. You know what I mean? So him talking about his start and all this different stories, like the Bruiser Brody story. I can't talk today. The Brody story and the Buzz Sawyer stories were ones that I've heard before, but kind of hear him retell it here was pretty interesting. He admits to steroid use as well, and a lot of guys were on it back then, so that really wasn't surprising that back in the day he was on some of that stuff, just like everybody is. Talked about how he got into the WWE, how all that started, how the character for The Undertaker came about, all of the evolution that his character went throughout the years. And all of those parts I thought were really good, because that's interesting. I like hearing The Undertaker talk about that. But then he also started talking about other things, including WWE's current product. And we've seen dozens of YouTube videos and people coming up with opinions on this. I really didn't think much of this because I wasn't really surprised. We've kind of talked about this, that, The Undertaker, we shouldn't be surprised if he says anything like this, because I'll tell you what, I'm not surprised at all that a giant guy covered from head to toe in tattoos, a lifelong Texan who's overly obsessed with patriotism, is going to have an interesting definition of what a real man is or what soft is or anything like that. So none of this really shocked me. And a lot of times too, you know, even not the Undertaker, but a lot of veterans just in general, in all walks of life, they always, the new generation is always viewed as soft from the old generation, whether it's in sports or whether it's in life or whether it's in music. You know, you see that too. I'm like an old man when it comes to music. I don't know who Angela Grande is or Cardio B or any of these fuckers. Like, I don't care. I hear this music, and to me, it's just garbage. It's just noise. It's trash. I don't care at all about modern music whatsoever. Don't know who anybody is. Don't know who the top hits are or the top acts are. Don't watch the MTV Music Awards. Don't listen to the Billboard top whatever the fuck. Don't know anything about it because I'm a grumpy old man who thinks music during my day was better. And that's the way everybody thinks usually about everything. And I remember when I was a kid, I was probably 13 or 14 years old. I was listening to Poison by Belle Biv DeVoe. And my dad had walked in the room, and he, like a snotty old man, he goes, "What the hell is this?" I'm like, "It's Belle Biv DeVoe, Dad. What the F?" And he's like, "This isn't music. This isn't music. This is trash." I'm like, "What are you talking about? This is awesome. Never trust a big butt and a smile, Dad. See you later." You know, and now, you know, that song's like a classic or whatever. So you always feel that way about that your era, your generation was tougher, had better taste in music, things like that. So you'll hear this from all guys. You'll hear this from Bret Hart. You'll hear this from all sorts of old timers and things like that. But with The Undertaker, you know, maybe the way he was putting it was a little bit off-putting to some, especially when he describes the WWE locker room as too soft and the WWE product as too soft. Now, in terms of the product, yeah, it's definitely soft. Like, the writing is shit, the skits are cheesy, the dialogue is terrible, the promos are bad, nothing is believable, where back in the day, Attitude Era, and even times before that, it was much easier to suspend your disbelief than it is now. So in terms of the current product being shit, yeah, I totally agree with that. But in terms of it being soft, and when he says soft, I think he means the WWE locker room. And he said that. He goes, you know, back in my day, I'd walk into the locker room and there would be all these crusty guys there. A lot of them would have knives and guns in their bag. They would be hungover, fucked up on drugs, on steroids, bipolar, whatever, some sort of chemical imbalance. And you look back in like 1970s and 1980s and even 1990s locker rooms, it was quite the fucking circus back in the day. And not everybody was messed up, but most guys had a lot of problems, a lot of demons. They were on a lot of drugs. There was a certain type of, you know, I don't know why it attracted this certain type of craziness or something. I mean, there was a lot of like crazy wrestlers, some of them very good people, but also people that were batshit nuts and dangerous and mean and bullies and things like that. And because a lot of them were on drugs, all of them were just smashed on cocaine constantly. They all went out and got drunk and got hammered every single night after a show, working hungover the next day, being addicted to God knows what, taking steroids. And what happened? Everybody in the Undertaker's era, their hearts exploded right out of their chests before age 50, sometimes before age 40 in some cases. All of the people that we've lost to drugs and alcohol and past mistakes is ridiculous. You know, the amount, especially from his generation, all of the friends that he's lost, some of them in his own BSK crew. And for him to now criticize today's talent for playing video games? Are you kidding me? I see no downside to this whatsoever. And I don't know if that necessarily, does that really mean somebody is soft? The fact that you are, the Undertaker has an inability to recognize that times change and people change as well? I would much rather sit in a locker room next to Xavier Woods than Dynamite Kid or Chris Benoit for that matter, or somebody else that's completely fucking batshit nuts. I see nothing wrong with today's talent having college educations, living a relative drug-free lifestyle, hopefully. I wish the talent was allowed to smoke weed. I think everybody in wrestling should be allowed to smoke weed with no judgment, no fines, no repercussions at all. But nobody's fucked up on drugs. These wrestlers don't even drink and go crazy that much anymore. Yes, they have a good time, I'm sure, but not to the degree that you hear about. Nobody's biting anyone's nose off in a bar fight. You know what I mean? And, you know, you probably still have a fair amount of infidelity going on like you always have in wrestling, but that's probably due to the fact that there are so many women involved in WWE right now where before you would just go out to bars and meet somebody and, you know, never speak to them again type of thing. So the fact that we have a locker room full of people where some have college educations, nobody's on drugs, nobody has past demons or issues that they can't get a hold of. Like I said, some do, you know, but most overall don't. They play video games, but at the same time, they're also happy. They're also healthy. They have a positive attitude. They have mental stability. They have family support. These are all good things. These are things that talent of yesterday, a lot of them didn't have. A lot of them were on their own, you know, and the sleeping in the cars and that sort of thing. You know, now you have a generation of wrestlers that are probably growing up in a relatively normal, you know, whatever you want to define that is, life, where they go to school and have two parents and decide they want to go to wrestling, and maybe the parents are resistant, but they, you know, say it's your life, do what you want, and they don't have any of those obstacles to face that a lot of, you know, talent from back in the day maybe have. And so Undertaker looks at this as soft, and maybe that it compromises what his definition of a real man is. But that's fucking stupid. I can't believe that the Undertaker would have a problem with the locker room today. As an old-time wrestling fan, somebody that's been watching just as long or longer than Taker has been wrestling, I am happy that the locker room is this way. You know how much pain a wrestling fan my age has had to endure watching all these guys die, all these legends, all these heroes of mine growing up pass away because all of the mistakes they made throughout their lives by just living wild and living crazy and not being responsible and not caring about anybody. And I think that you have a whole different attitude now in a locker room to where a lot of dynamics are different. You don't have a lot of the cutthroat political BS that you used to have when it was just Vince and guys could get to him and he was have his favorites and he could play his favorites. Now it's like Vince, you know, Vince is like God. You know, it takes, you know, I don't know, Catholicism. I know, like, if you're trying to speak to God, you have to speak to like 5 or 6 bishops first before you get to him. Like, that's Vince now, you know, where back in the day he was a little bit more directly accessible. He could make his own determinations and have his own crazy thoughts in his head and be able to play the favorites and pay guys, and guys can manipulate and things like that. I'm sure that can still happen. I'm sure you can still have guys that really play the political card hard backstage, but nowhere near the way it was, where guys' careers are being ruined or, you know, throats are getting stepped on. You hear some of that, of course. You know, Alex Riley blames John Cena and Kennedy blames Randy Orton and shit like that from time to time, but not as rampant as it used to be. All in all, today's locker room has got their shit together. You don't hear anything too crazy negative about them. Anytime something does come up, like a DUI or whatever, you know, like the Usos and others and the Hardys, who have had their problems as well, but it's not as common as like Hacksaw Jim Duggan and the Iron Sheik getting popped with cocaine in the car, or Sabu and RVD even being pulled over as recent as 15 years ago. So the locker room has changed, the wrestler's mentality has changed, and wrestling in general has changed, because now as we look at it, especially with independent wrestling, all the different types of wrestlers we have guys that are like 120 pounds like Marco Stunt that have contracts in major wrestling companies. You know, you can debate whether or not if you think that's right or not. Doesn't matter. He's got the contract. What you think doesn't matter. The point is, wrestling's changed. It's different. Guys that wouldn't be able to be in the business back in the day are in the business now, and it's changing the overall vibe, the overall attitude of the locker room in general, and I don't see any downside to that at all about having a locker room of guys that are there, like each other, get along, and have their shit together, instead of being unreliable, drug-addicted messes who are digging themselves into early graves. So I think that for Undertaker to have a problem with that is silly, and his, you know, you always see this mentality, like I said, from the old timers, but he also kind of mentioned that when talking about the wrestlers of yesterday, how they'd be crusty and have a bag full of knives and shit. And he said, he goes, you know, I miss that when men were men. I'm a man. I don't have a knife in my fucking bag. I don't know why he's got this weird definition of what a man is or what he thinks a man is, but that's the Undertaker, and they're a whole different story for another time. We're not going to get into that, because now that this 4-year fucking nightmare is over, I feel like I can at least go for a little bit and just know that there is a hinged person in charge for a change. So I don't really care from a political sense what the Undertaker thinks. Everybody knows he's a conservative. Everybody knows he's a Republican. Everybody knows he donated to Donald Trump. He wears that thin blue line shit. And, you know, some of the clothing line apparels that he wears does have ties to really alt-right extremism type shit, but I don't care. I don't fucking care what this lifelong Texan thinks. A lot of people think that way. He's very, very, very obsessed with the flag and patriotism, and that stuff is just so exhausting on me. So I really don't care. And plus, he's the Undertaker, and he's given me one of my favorite careers all time in wrestling. So when it comes to something like that, I just have to try my best to ignore that side of his life. That's his personal life. He can support whoever he wants. He has every right to have whatever political opinions he wants. I don't care. What I am more concerned with is the character, the gimmick, the career that he gave us as wrestling fans, and how awesome that Undertaker run was for 30 years in the company. That's what I always appreciate. And, you know, in my mind, that gives the Undertaker a pass just to, if he wants to display, you know, the type of person he is, you know, he can do that. He's going to have to suffer the consequences for it, but it's not going to make me think any less of his wrestling career. And it's not going to, I'm not going to lose any respect for him in terms of that. But, you know, the more we would have learned this about the Undertaker a long time ago, had he been doing these type of interviews his whole career. You know, now that it's kind of over, he's coming out, getting out there more, letting us know who he is. And and he makes no bones about it, that flag is very important to him. And that's just, you know how I feel about that. So I'm cool with, you know, whatever he wants to believe and all that stuff. I'm not going to attack him for that. And I'm certainly not going to pile on the shit, because once he starts pissing somebody off, like AJ mentioned earlier on, you know, somebody's now trying to accuse him of being homophobic because he hit Canyon with a chair. On the surface, that sounds like somebody taking things a little bit too far on the Undertaker, because he's pissed them off with his comments and now they want to cancel him and go crazy on him. And I just kind of judge each situation for how they are. And even though I completely disagree with his assessment on the locker room, I don't believe locker room or men in general are soft. I think times and people are changing. And what your definition of a man is not the definition of a man. It's just what you think, and it's what you want, and it's what your generation is taught to believe. And, you know, people who are born and raised and live their whole damn lives in Texas usually have a common way of thinking. So it's fine with me. You know, Undertaker's still a legend. Undertaker's still a Hall of Famer. Like I said, I think he should be the lone class member in 2021 if they add him to last year's class at the virtual Hall of Fame this year and knock it all out. But, you know, I definitely disagree with his comments, but that's all. I almost didn't want to comment on it because I'm like, Undertaker. But Joe Rogan is such a big podcast. If Undertaker would have made these comments anywhere else, I might have ignored it this week. But Rogan is such a huge podcast that gets millions and millions and millions of views and listens. It was a big deal, and it was a big topic of conversation. So, you know, I think all of that is a little bit silly. I think today's locker room should be happy that they've turned the corner. I think today's locker room should be proud that they've turned the corner and changed what a professional wrestling locker room is, where for the most part, I mean, I know we still have locker room fights, locker room issues, animosity, manipulation, all that is never going to go away in wrestling. But in terms of how it is now compared to how it used to be, it's a much more comfortable atmosphere to be in. And I would much rather enter as a rookie a locker room today than a locker room 15 or 20 years ago or 30 years ago, to where somebody just decides they don't like your face and you're just, you know, you're ostracized and you can't, you know, you worked your whole life to get there. And then one stupid thing, you piss off Chris Benoit by getting fried chicken on the floor like the Miz did. Next thing you know, you're changing in the broom closet. So I think that, you know, the way it is now is much better, probably, especially for, like, you know, people's mental health and everything. And plus now technology has changed the game so much. Undertaker was complaining about the video games. Guess what? 30 years ago, people were complaining about video games. In 1987 and 1986, when the Nintendo came out and Super Mario was running everywhere, I remember news reports talking about if kids are going to spend too much time playing games and their schooling and their education is going to suffer for it. Man, you guys would kill to go back to those days in terms of being able to have kids' attention. Because, yeah, I would play some Nintendo, but I wouldn't play that shit for 21 out of the 24 hours of the day like you see now with people streaming games. You have games that take days and hours and weeks to complete and finish, and everybody's online now, and it's all interactive, and it's just completely consuming kids. So, you know, today I think video games are a danger to kids today a lot more than they were before, but that's an argument that's always been made since the 70s, 80s, 90s. Everybody's always thought video games were a problem. And I would much rather have a locker room of talent playing video games than a locker room full of talent nursing hangovers. So again, I think Undertaker is way off on his assessment here, but whatever. He's got a right to his opinion. I think if the product was better, and the product was more well-written and produced better, and the storylines were a little bit more intriguing, and you had a little bit more of that excitement and enthusiasm that you had in, like, Ruthless Aggression era or Attitude era, you wouldn't give a shit what the locker room is doing. They can play video games all day long in the back. So I don't know if that was a personal shot at Xavier Woods or something, because he's got the gaming channel and he's constantly filming people playing games backstage, but give me that any day of the week. than Dynamite Kid walking around bullying everybody every day, you know? It's just, it's different times, you know? If you walk into a locker room in 1983 and you walk into a locker room in 2021 and you put those things side by side, they don't even resemble the same. You wouldn't even know what you were looking at, you know, between the two. It's literally that different. So, whatever, Undertaker, he's got his opinions. It didn't upset me, really. Like I said, I didn't agree, but it wasn't anything that was going to, I can't wait to go on YouTube and rant about him. I didn't care. You know, I'm not surprised. This is the way The Undertaker is, and get used to it, because the more of these interviews he does, the more sides of this personality you're going to see. So you got to accept that, or you better just not listen to him. So I've just chose to accept it. Even though I don't agree, it's, you know, it is what it is. So I hope that was an acceptable response to Undertaker's comments. It was just like, yeah, not surprised. He's dumb. Moving on. So that was pretty much it. But anyway, I know everybody was dying to hear my thoughts on that. I've gotten some DMs and a lot of questions on Twitter asking me about that situation. So there you go. Did I get everybody on the super chats? I want to make sure I didn't miss anybody before I go. I got a couple of more, and then we'll get out of here. All right, Zane, I got you. Barry, you like turtles. So do I. Darby Allin likes turtles. I wonder if anybody will get that. Spaz Phoenix, appreciate the $5 again. Vince just personally signed indie sensation Nicholas Gott to the PC. Oh, man. 2 more from Storm Adam. I second that. I also rather like turtles. I like turtles. All right. Man, Midwest Goon, I'm not sure if I can figure out. That's one thing actually, I could do that. I've got an Atari flashback, as long as that'll hook up to the Elgato. Where is that thing? I'll show you guys later, but I'd have to figure out how to get to some 2,600 games streamed. I know it can be done. That's going to be some of the questions I have for y'all later on who want to stick around and listen to my gaming bullshit. But anyway, Undertaker on Joe Rogan, whatever. Let's move on. There's also some news on NXT. NXT could maybe be bounced out of Wednesday nights in the future. There was a report going around that NBC Sports is going to be ending its channel or whatever, and that's where a lot of NASCAR games and NHL games are played, and that's going to all be moving to the USA Network. So later on this year, NBC Sports is going to be shutting down, and NASCAR and NHL will move to USA. Now, NHL runs a lot of games on Wednesday nights, so there's a lot of speculation that NXT could be bumped to Thursdays, maybe even Tuesdays, but Thursday seems like the likely date, and I think that's great. WWE might even breathe a fresh air of sigh of relief here, because they're going to be forced to move instead of waving the white flag and say, okay, we're going to get away from Wednesday nights to eliminate this head-to-head competition, improve our ratings by going to another night, and moving to Thursdays would be good for them. I'm not sure if it would be so great for the fans. This is just adding another day to have to watch wrestling. So you're going to have Raw Monday, Impact Tuesday, Dynamite Wednesday, NXT Thursday, SmackDown Friday. That's a lot, man. So that seems likely. So we'll have to keep our eye on that. All they said was that they'll be shutting down later this year. No exact date, no exact time. I'm going to assume it's probably like for the fall schedule when hockey starts up in October, although it's kind of going on now. I don't know how the seasons are working with COVID, if anything is altered that much. But by the time we get to the fall, that could have an effect on NXT, and it could be bumped. And I think that's good for them. And I think, like I said, WWE would be relieved that they didn't have to look like the bitches by leaving. Now it's like, oh, USA's forcing our hand. Oh, we had no choice but to move. And they might actually be a little bit happy that this happens. And it might be better for NXT in the long run. I still feel like NXT should have just stayed on the network, but the whole head-to-head thing with AEW made everything so complicated, and NXT has suffered a little bit because of it. So I don't know about you guys. Let me know what you think, but I think the move to Thursdays is a pretty good idea. And also, WWE has signed a handful of indie talent, some women. Now, I only wrote down 3 names because they're the only 3 that I recognized. The other ones, I'm not quite sure who they are. But Priscilla Kelly, who was on the Jericho Cruise with us, very happy that she got signed. She's probably, honestly, about as Roll Tide as they come. I mean, like Stacy Keibler level Roll Tide. So she's now in the company. She'll be reporting to the Performance Center and NXT. That's good for her. Also, Lacey Ryan and Elena Black. Now, they even have names set up for these ladies. It looks like WWE has filed trademarks for some new character names. According to the reports, Priscilla Kelly is going to be now known as Gigi Dolan. Lacey Ryan's going to be Zoe Stark, and Elena Black will be Cora Jade. Now, Elena Black was pulled from a GCW match with Joey Janela that I think is coming up very soon. So WWE pulled her from that, won't allow her to work that. I guess, it's intergender and it's with the competitor. So maybe that's why. I don't know. That kind of sucks, but they're going to be in NXT now, and I'm curious. That's gonna add some potential to the next little crop of ladies that come up, and I wish them all the best. So that's very cool. Hopefully they'll all do well there, and that's some big signings. And there's a couple other women as well, but I don't know who they are. So because I don't follow the indies very closely, but at least those names I have seen and heard before. I also want to share with you this post by Fightful Select. They put this on Patreon yesterday, an update on Aleister Black. Just thought I'd read it to you, and we can kind of judge it together. According to them, I quote, "You haven't seen Aleister Black on WWE TV since being drafted to SmackDown, which is around the time of his wife Zelina's firing from the company. Sources on SmackDown have indicated to us that they've not seen him at all backstage since after the Zelina release. We haven't heard as to whether or not there are any specific issues between Black and WWE, but one person we talked to in the company seems to think that they're letting any ill will between the two subside." So that might be why Aleister Black has been absent, just to let everybody cool off. I'm sure he was not happy when all that stuff went down with Zelina. I know a lot of the fans weren't happy about it. I would much rather, as a fan, just rather see Aleister Black get out of there. None of this to me sounds promising for him at all, especially with WWE's pettiness and what assholes they can be sometimes. I feel like if they do bring Aleister Black back to TV, he is going to do a whole lot of nothing, probably get beat a lot and just be a complete waste and just add miles to his body and miles to his career for no reason whatsoever. I wish his contract would just, expire and he can go over to AEW, because I feel like he could be a huge deal there. Like, I feel like AEW has dropped the ball on a couple of these talents jumping ship. Miro, to me, is extremely entertaining, but is he really better in AEW than better off there so far anyway than he was as Rusev in WWE? That's debatable. So there's a couple of things that I think AEW should have done better with. Aleister Black is a guy that I feel like nobody can fuck up. The only company capable of fucking up a guy like Aleister Black is the company he's in, WWE. Look at when he was in NXT, he was fantastic. Of course, you get to the main roster and everything just sucks, just like it does for Ricochet and, Shinsuke Nakamura and so many others that have been jumped up. So I feel like Aleister Black would just be better off going somewhere, because he's so good and he's so capable of having great matches. And I just kind of wish he'd get out of there, because even if they bring him back, even if everything kind of cools off and they bring Aleister Black back, do you guys have any confidence whatsoever that they're going to do anything with him? No. There's no way they will. They're going to treat him like shit. So that's a little update on Aleister Black. We'll keep our eye on it. I don't know his contract status. No idea when it's up. Hopefully, if it's within a year, I feel like he can wait it out. But if he's got another 2 years or, God forbid, another 3 years, he could be in some trouble. That just sucks. I don't trust WWE to do jack shit with him. Also, we have a couple of sad deaths to report as well. Both of these guys passed away just a day or two apart, and they both have ties to wrestling. The first one was the legendary Hall of Famer, MLB baseball player, Hank Aaron. He was the all-time leading home run leader for many, many years, until that was actually broken by Barry Bonds a few years ago. There's an asterisk behind the Barry Bonds one, though, because of all of the steroid and the doping and all of that. But he did break the record officially, and Hank Aaron held it for a long time, 755 home runs. He held that from 1974 all the way until whatever year Bonds broke it. Bonds has actually been in my restaurant a couple of times. I've met him. But I kind of think it's messed up that Bonds has that record now. You know what I mean? And he was such a huge legend, Atlanta Braves legend, and all-time great. And passed away, I forget how old he was, in his 80s. And he's got ties to professional wrestling, because after his baseball career, he became a Turner executive. And, of course, the Turner Sports Network and Ted Turner and that whole deal, and they owned WCW. And Hank Aaron made several appearances for WCW. I think he was at an event in 92, another one in 94, and he was interviewed in the ring a couple of times, and so he had made some WCW appearances. But he's probably best known for, I guess, what happened with Bill Watts. And there was a situation when Bill Watts was in charge in WCW, and Hank Aaron was an executive at Turner at the time as well, and some interview that he had done, I think it was with the PW Torch, Pro Wrestling Torch interview from like 91. I think the interview was actually done before Watts was even in WCW, but it came out and it was really messed up. And it's like, the last time I read it, we talked about this on the channel, I would say maybe a year ago. Somebody had brought it up and I had told the story, and I remember then saying, I don't want to read you the transcript of the interview because it's almost like you almost can't believe what you're reading. Like, excuse me? I mean, it's basically, he just goes on and on to say about how he thinks discrimination should be legal. And if I own my own company, I should be able to discriminate against anybody. Very, very homophobic, a lot of racial stuff in there too, and very strange stuff. And that's something that even back then I could understand why you would want to say that out loud or publicly. So that comes out. It gets put in front of Hank Aaron, and the word is that he had a big hand in getting Bill Watts booted from WCW. Now, Bill Watts, I think, claims that he was let go or he was already leaving or he quit by the time that interview came out. But there's another side of the story that said Hank Aaron got wind of that, read it, and said, I want this guy out of there, and might have contributed to booting Bill Watts out, and he should have been. That's some fucked up stuff. I mean, Bill Watts has got a history of doing great things for black wrestlers. Junkyard Dog was a huge star. You know, he would have been bigger in WWE had he not had probably some issues and stuff, but he was billed as a monster star down in Mid-South. And a lot of other guys as well, and Ernie Ladd and others who have, you know, had relationships with Bill Watts. So when you read some of this stuff, it's just like, holy shit, you can't believe it. But, you know, Hank Aaron was very offended by that. And apparently he was part of the reason why Bill was let go from WCW. But that's a sad death to report there. Baseball legend. I've been to the Baseball Hall of Fame many times. I've seen Hank Aaron displays and stuff. And I was a big baseball card collector as I grew up. And never was able to afford a Hank Aaron card. Actually, never had a Hank Aaron card. That was just like a few years before my time. I didn't start really collecting until late 70s, early 80s, those baseball cards, and never got my hands on any sort of Hank Aaron rookie, but I might be a rich man today if I would have. So very sad there to report. Rest in peace to Hank Aaron. And another Turner kind of legend, Larry King. Larry King unfortunately passed away this morning here in LA at the age of 87. He had been battling COVID. No confirmation as to whether or not that was what actually killed him or not, but he was battling that, I think, late last year, and I think he was in the hospital for it. So he has officially passed away at 87. He was, you know, a mainstay on CNN for a long time. CNN was co-founded by Ted Turner 41 years ago, I think, back in 1980, and he had a show on that channel for years and years and years. I have memories of it, and he also has a lot of ties to wrestling too, because throughout the years he's had professional wrestlers on his show. He was even He was even spoofed in the Billionaire Ted skits back in the day in 1996 with the Larry Fling and the Hanoi Jane and all that shit, and that was pretty funny. But he's kind of a sad death because he was such a boss. He was a cool guy, and everybody loved Larry King. And I think the last time I remember a significant wrestler being on a show was after the Chris Benoit murders, and I think they had John Cena and Chris Jericho on the show. And Larry King was a great interviewer, man. And Cena and Jericho, I thought they were great that night because that was a very crazy time. Jericho wasn't even back in the company yet. He didn't come back for a couple of more months, but Cena was. And they were probably, at least at the time, the two best people to put on TV, because when Benoit had died, they had anybody who used to wrestle or anybody who had any sort of contact or relationship or anything or experiences with Chris Benoit ever were coming out of the woodwork to do interviews, and they were making wrestling look really bad. And this Larry King interview was one of the few interviews during all of this that I thought, man, if people have this negative idea of wrestling, and of course everybody's just, you know, assuming it's roid rage and just piling on to, you know, the already really, really dark side that professional wrestling has always had. Jericho and John Cena represented everything well, and Larry King did a great job hosting that night. So that's kind of a bummer that he has now passed away as well. So rest in peace to Larry King. He was an absolute legend, and that's really sad. Larry King and Hank Aaron no longer with us. But anyway, we had to report on that as well and talk a little bit about them. That's kind of sad. Memories of both of those guys. Let me cruise up here and make sure I didn't miss anything. Yeah, I got a couple of more super chats to knock out, and then we will get into some of the results of the week. But I'm not going to spend too much time on it because I don't know about you guys. How did you feel about the Wednesday night shows this week? They felt both a little bit weaker, especially Dynamite. So we'll probably roll through the results here rather quickly, and I'll tell you which show I preferred this week. Another big ratings win for AEW, of course. Yeah, we'll get into the results here in just a second. Let me knock out chats that are super. I'll just make sure I don't miss anybody. There's Martin Can popping in with 5 more. Appreciate it, man. Did you watch 205 Live? Ciampa and Thatcher are a tag team. They looked awesome. I didn't know they wrestled yet, but we're going to talk about that here in just a second because I am so thrilled about those 2 guys teaming up. We've been talking about that for a long time. We talked about that on War Games. They had that match at War Games, and after the match on the outside of the ring, very, very brief moment between the 2 of them, and they just kind of looked at each other, and the first thing that came in my mind was tag team. And I mentioned it in the review that night. I said, whenever this feud runs its course, I want to see these guys team up. They can be huge. So the fact that they're actually doing this, I am so thrilled. But no, I have not seen that match. Luigi Dara, thank you for 5 as well. Gigi was on my big American Gypsy wedding when she was 14. The hell does that mean? Okay. Storm Adam, appreciate the $5 as well. I could definitely see Aleister Black as AEW's own little Undertaker if he stays with them for the rest of his career. I could too. It's probably hard to stay in one place for your entire career nowadays, now that you actually have places to go. But yeah, I mean, a lot of people drew comparisons to the Undertaker with Aleister Black. Even when Aleister was on TV, some people thought Taker should have his last match with him instead of AJ Styles. You know, a lot of people made the case for Aleister Black. So I'd be perfectly fine with AEW grabbing a hold of him and making him a character like that. Might be the closest thing we get to the Undertaker ever again, or at least to a run. Oh yeah, Butch Reed. There's another good example of some of Bill Watts' booking. Yeah, if you want to go read, it was a Pro Wrestling Torch 1991 interview. Just a lot of stuff like discrimination, racism, homophobia. It was just a whole lot of that going on in that interview. And it's like, God damn, what the hell is this guy saying? So, yeah, no wonder he lost his job. He fucking deserved it. It's fucking rednecks and their homophobia, man. I don't know what it is about people in the South like that. They're so weird. Like, what the fuck? Does it hurt you? How does it bother you? What the fuck? I don't care what anybody does behind closed doors. Have sex with whoever you want. It's literally not significant to my life whatsoever. I don't know why it bothers these people so much. It fucking drives me crazy. It's probably because they're secretly gay, right? That's what they all say. Bill Watts, secretly gay. Pass it along on Twitter. I'm kidding. All right, cool. That caught up all the super dupers there. Let's get into AEW Dynamite first. First of all, we'll talk about the ratings. AEW scored another victory this week. Pretty significant one, 854,000 to NXT's 659. So a couple of 100,000 more viewers for AEW Dynamite. But I got to say, man, I don't know if I liked it more than NXT this week. But we're going to start with it here. Show opened up with -1's birthday party. They had advertised that Brody Lee's son was going to be celebrating his birthday. It's his first birthday without his dad, so that's kind of sad. But they have the Dark Order come out with -1. They've got a cake on a table and the whole deal. They're trying to light the candles. I think it's windy in Florida, and so they're having trouble lighting the candles, but they get them all lit. Luther and Serpentico show up and say that they're going to ruin the birthday party, and the Dark Order then attacks them. The Hybrid 2 come out as well to join in the fray. And then probably the best part of the whole brawl, they start spilling on the outside of the ring, and they start going down the stage on the outside of the ring. Hangman Page, out of nowhere, comes running through the aisleway, and he just launches himself with some hang time. Adam Page is what he should be, and he just goes flying through the air and lands on a couple of guys. That was great. Big brawl, and that was going to open up the show, a big 8-man tag. It was going to be Adam Page, Colt Cabana, John Silver, and Alex Reynolds taking on Luther, Serpentico, and the Hybrid 2 in an 8-man. This was a pretty fun match because it just had shit going on all over the place. You knew that Luther was going to eat some cake later because of what he said earlier on in the promo. Of course, he gets slammed into the cake and eats some of that. I think even -1 whacks him and Serpentico with the kendo stick at one point. Back in the ring, the finish of the match I really liked. It was this really cool like buckshot German suplex combo by Hangman and Alex Reynolds. I forgot who they hit with that. Might have been Serpentico. I can't remember. But it might have been Jack Evans. I can't remember. Anyway, but it was a cool-looking finisher, and that won the match for the Dark Order and Adam Page. And, of course, last week we had heard that Dark Order wanted Adam Page's answer as to whether or not to join the faction. So apparently we're going to get that here as well, but not before -1 said a couple of things on the mic, and I think he told the heels, he told Luther or something. He goes, my birthday was 3 days ago, you idiot, and whacked somebody else with the kendo stick. So -1 had a great time out there. The heels ate cake. The match was pretty good. The finish was good, and I liked all of that. And this was probably my favorite part of the show because this was so damn funny. After the match, John Silver gets on the mic, and he says, he goes, okay, this is it, Paige. You know, we want your answer. Are you going to join the Dark Order? He calls him. He goes, you're a really awesome wrestler, and you're a good wrestler, and you're very handsome, and you have nice hair. And he's just complimenting the shit out of him. And so it's basically like a wedding proposal. And Adam Page gets on the mic, and he goes, as much as I, like you guys and as much fun as I've been having, I got to say no. But as he's talking and he's starting to say that, they begin the victory celebration, or they begin the he said yes celebration. There's like people with sombreros coming out, some celebratory music is playing, and they just begin this big he said yes type of celebration, only for him just to say no. And then the music kind of slowly dies off, and they're like, okay, cut it, go away, and shoots everybody away. That was probably the funniest part of the show to me, was the way they got faked out there. But Paige goes on to say, he goes, I've had a lot of fun with you guys. I like you guys and everything, but I've never really had a lot of luck in groups. So unfortunately, I'm sorry to say this, but I just can't. And he walks away. And I think, I'm not even sure, as I'm typing my notes here, as this is happening, I'm looking over at the screen. As he's walking away, I'm pretty sure he grabs a bottle of Jack Daniels out of one of the Dark Order members' hands. I think that was probably brought out for the celebration. So I thought that was a nice little touch. As he leaves, he grabs the Jack. Great shit there. So that was probably my favorite segment of the night, was the beginning stuff with -1, then the match, and then the whole celebration that wasn't to be. They're not many, but there's a few of them on YouTube. Like, you can find them, like wedding proposals, and then the girl says no. Could you fucking imagine? So that was all fun. Enjoyed that. And I don't think that story's done being told yet. This could just be a slow burn for Paige to really accept the Dark Order at some point. I think personally Paige is probably better on his own, but everything he's done so far with the Dark Order has been really entertaining. So if they want to keep this going, this wrestling fan ain't complaining. Do what you got to do there. This next one was weird. We get a promo with Sting and Darby Allin up next. This was advertised as Sting wanting to have a promo with Darby Allin so he can congratulate him on his TNT title run and all that shit. So you get Sting out there with Darby Allin in the ring, and Sting goes on to say that I see a lot of myself in you. And I've talked about that before. I'm not going to rant on it again, but that just cracks me up. Like, I'm very, very against this idea that Sting and Darby Allin are a lot alike. They're not. How many times do I have to say this? They're not the same size. Darby's half the size Sting was. They're certainly not the same wrestling style, and they're certainly not the same personality. The only thing that's close to the same about either one of them is that they both wear black and white face paint, and even Sting hasn't done that his whole career. He was Surfer Sting, remember? Surfer Sting never surfed. So I guess the surfer and the skateboard thing are kind of similar, but really not really. He was not like Darby Allin. Sting was not jumping off of bridges. He did not have that reckless lifestyle. You know who does? Jeff Hardy. If Darby Allin is like anybody, he's like Jeff Hardy. So Sting goes on to say that he sees a lot of self in Darby, and yada, 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 and I respect you, and that sort of shit. And that's when Taz and company appear on the Tron. They start talking shit to those guys, and they basically challenge them. They challenge Darby Allin and Sting to a street fight, and I think all they said, was it Darby or was it Sting? They got on the mic and said, be careful what you wish for. And then the announcers are like, did Sting just accepted the challenge or something like that? So they made it sound like the challenge was accepted, even though Sting and Darby didn't really say that in the promo. But now it's being reported that Sting and Darby Allin will in fact take on Team Taz in a street fight at Revolution, which is coming up, I think, next month or at the end of February or something like that. Or I guess it could come out, or I guess it could be at the beach. What's it, Beach Blast? Not Beach Blast. The beach show they got coming up. So maybe there, but man, what a wasted opportunity to really announce a Sting return to the ring. I'm surprised he's even getting in the ring. I figured he would for a tag match or something kind of extremely light, but they should make the announcement of Sting returning to the ring for the first time in probably like 5 years, and the first time to TNT in 21, a little bit bigger of a deal than that. It was almost kind of like it was a letdown on the announcement. They didn't, holy shit, Sting is returning to the ring. They just said challenge accepted, and then it was kind of reported online that the street fight will likely happen at Revolution, unless they do it in a couple of weeks on the beach show. So Sting apparently will in fact wrestle in a tag match with Darby Allin. That's not too surprising there. We talked about the potential of Sting wrestling ever since he came into the company. And when he was there, I said, I think we can all agree that none of us need to see a 61-year-old Sting in the ring. But if they put him in there in a tag team situation or something extremely protected, I, as a wrestling fan, because a young wrestling fan doesn't give a shit, but somebody like me does. Somebody who remembers Sting when he started. Y'all don't. So for me personally, seeing him in the ring in AEW would actually be comforting, because I do not want my last Sting in the ring memory to be that match with Seth Rollins. All those years he wrestled in his career, all that time that he worked against WWE. Never going there until the very end when they put him in the Hall of Fame, having a couple of matches, and, the match with Seth was a complete catastrophe, and I don't want Sting to be remembered for that. I want Sting's last match to be maybe on TNT. So maybe that he'll do the Darby one, and maybe he'll get in the ring once or twice other than that. And I personally am okay with that. And we talked about this right at the beginning, where I think they're going to cross the line and where I will not be okay with it if they put Sting in title matches or they put the belt on him like WWE puts the belt on Goldberg. And even that I don't think is the same thing. I'm not a big fan of Goldberg, but he's much more capable at his age right now in the ring than Sting is. It's just facts. Goldberg's in great shape. He's younger. He's old, but he's more capable, I think, in the ring, where I don't think Sting would be able to do very much in the ring, which is why I don't want to see them give him a title or something like that. But putting him in the ring in a tag team attraction match or something special once or twice before he officially doesn't wrestle anymore, I personally have no problem with that. I just don't want him to be utilized like Goldberg is utilized. That's where I think the mistake can be made. So if he sticks with this, and he's there to kind of give the rub to somebody else, that's a big deal. Hogan got in the ring and won the tag team titles with Edge all those years ago. That rub that he gave Edge, that was a dream come true for him to be able to wrestle side by side with his idol like that. Darby Allin is going to get that opportunity as well. And he could be one of the guys that was around Sting at the time of his retirement, his official retirement, his last match. That's all good for Darby. At least, where Goldberg is coming in WWE, he's right at the top getting title matches. He's not putting any young guys over. Well, he might here, hopefully, with Drew McIntyre. But, Sting at least is working with somebody. Jericho's done a lot of that too. Everybody that he's worked with, whether he's been teaming against him or working in matches against him, Jericho has been able to give a lot of young talent a rub. And Sting doing that here with Darby, I think, is a good thing. I poked fun at the fact that they're not as alike as people think they are, and they need to look beyond the black and white face paint. But regardless of my opinion on that, it's still very great and very awesome that Sting is pairing himself with someone like Darby Allin, who's super over, has a bright future. And this is nothing but good for Darby Allin to have this association with Sting and wrestle a match with him. That's a big deal for Darby, wherever he goes in his career. Darby strikes me as the type of guy that won't be wrestling forever. He's got too many outside interests. He'll probably start a band or a motocross company or something like that, or a bungee jumping company. Who knows? It just seems like he's got lots of other focuses. But if he sticks with wrestling, builds a long career for himself, wins a lot of titles, he will look back at this time and say, wow, that's Sting helped me a lot. Sting taught me a lot. Sting jump-started, launched my career, and gave me that boost that I needed. AEW gave me a chance, put the belt on me, but then Sting gave me that shove that I needed to really, launch and be a top player around here. So if that all happens for Darby, he will look back very fondly on this time. And right now, I have no issues with Sting wrestling. I'm not comparing. I think if you compare it to Goldberg, that's a weak comparison. It is not the same thing, not even close. When Sting gets in the ring, faces Kenny Omega for the title and beats him, then it's like Goldberg. But until then, these are not the same situations at all. There's 10 years in difference between the two, and there's a lot of physical difference between the two. And even though I'm not a fan of the Goldberg stuff either, he's got a little bit more business being in the ring at this point than Sting does in my mind. So I don't like that comparison either, and I resist it. So leave your Goldberg shit at home. After that, we've got the segment where the Young Bucks go to Kenny Omega's house. I guess they're going there to meet him, but he's not there. They're met by Don Callis instead. This was another favorite part of Dynamite for me, was that beautiful, sexy portrait that was in Kenny Omega's house. I put it up here on the overlay here. Kenny and Don Callis. I'm just posing beautifully tanned and muscular. So funny. I thought that was the funniest shit for some reason. I got a huge kick out of that. And I guess what's going on here is that the Bucks showed up there to having a discussion with Omega about the future of the Elite, and they're met by Don Callis instead, who basically tries to bribe them. He writes them checks or shows them checks, and basically is a way to bribe them to sever ties with Kenny Omega, break up the friendship so Callis can have him all to himself. But they kind of don't like the bribe, and they say, oh, these checks are going to bounce. And they enter like a dungeon portion of the house, and then they like beat the shit out of Don Callis off screen. So Callis is getting his ass kicked off screen. Later on, he's back at the arena, and he approaches Kenny Omega or Kenny Omega arrives and sees Don Callis all beat up and busted up. So there's going to be more there with Kenny and the Bucks. I was thinking at first, after that first week, that we were going to get this big Bullet Club reunion between all these guys, you know, the super faction of the Bucks and Gallows and Anderson and Callis and Omega. But it looks like that's not to be. That's already out the window. And the Bucks are now going to be on the outside looking in. And now that's, do you think with this working relationship, I don't know here because there's so much going on, would they unify anything? They wouldn't unify any tags, would they? We could get a Bucks Good Brothers match. Although I think Private Party is actually now the #1 contenders for the Impact tag titles because they are on Impact this week. So there's some interesting developments here with this working relationship. They seem to be going all in. Now it looks like guys can even challenge for championships in the other company, which is really interesting. So we'll see how far this goes and if it leads to any sort of big stipulation match where one company captures the belts from another company or you do some sort of a unification or whatever. Who knows? But I kind of like it. It's pretty interesting. And like I said, I cannot get enough of that photo. I looked it up on Amazon, tried to buy it, or tried to buy the portrait on Amazon. It's not there yet. It's a bummer. But my fireplace needs something to go over it, and that will be perfect. We also had Cody Rhodes defeating Peter Avalon. Not much to say about this match other than a lot of fans were upset that Cody was giving Peter so much offense. That stuff doesn't bother me. I saw a lot of that on Twitter. Oh, Peter's going to be getting so much offense. Who cares? God damn. Find something that matters to bitch about. Cody defeated Peter Avalon. Competitive match. No complaints. FTR promo backstage. We had Jurassic Express showing up, and Jungle Boy is saying that he can beat anybody in their team. He can beat either one of you guys one-on-one. So Dax accepts the challenge. Next week, we're going to get Jungle Boy and Harwood on Dynamite, so that should be pretty good. Another interesting matchup next. Jon Moxley was back in the ring for the first time since losing the AEW title. He's taking on a guy named Nick Camarado. Where the hell has this guy been? Holy shit, is he big? He almost looks like a little bit of Hercules Hernandez, a little bit of Elias, a little bit of the Ultimate Warrior, all kind of rolled into one there. He almost looked like homeless Elias. He had big wild hair, but he was fucking jacked and he was big and he was pretty good. Again, much like the Cody and Peter Avalon match, Moxley gave him a pretty decent amount of offense. You could argue that the match should have been a little bit less competitive than that. Okay, fine, fair enough. I'll even accept that for the Cody match. But in terms of it bothering me or it not making sense or whatever, fuck off. Doesn't bother me at all. It was a good show, a good showing and good outing for him. Definitely made people take notice of him because when I was on Twitter that night, everybody was like, who the hell is this guy and why have we not seen more of him? He almost reminds me of, there's a guy in NXT, Rick Bugenhagen. He's all crazy and wild like that too. Get these three guys together and make them a 3-man team. Elias, Bugenhagen, and Camarado. Holy crap. That would be an interesting, wild, wacky-ass team. Elias might be way too chill for those guys. But anyway, Moxley wins, of course, and cuts a promo after the match and says that, he's still eyeballing Kenny Omega, and Kenny's title run has made things a little bit more fun for him, and he's not giving up his pursuit of Omega and the title, so Moxley is still in the mix there. Some news came out on him, too, this week as well. He did an AMA with Bleacher Report, and he was asked about a potential WWE return and said that he was open to it, basically gave the never say never answer. So we could, at least he just left the door open to maybe go back there sometime in the future. And we've all thought that. I thought the minute he left that 5 years from now, he'll probably go back. But the way he left, and how he was treated there seemed to frustrate him so much. It was going to be some time, but now it's been over a year. It's been a year and a half or whatever it's been since he's been gone. A lot of those feelings are starting to settle. And maybe he can think a little bit more clearly now and maybe go back. I think he probably will. We said that when he left, that there is no way as wrestling fans, we as fans, no matter what company it's in, we will not get a Shield reunion. Like, we will. It will happen one day. It might be in 2025, but it will happen, and I can't wait for it to. So I like the fact that Moxley's smart, just always keeping doors open for everything. Of course, we know he's got a New Japan match coming up here in the future as well, and he's still got a big run left and probably a lot of time left on his contract here in AEW as well. But, he's also going to go where he thinks he can, flourish the most as a star. But he had a long run with the AEW title. He says he's happy there for now and has no plans in leaving, but it doesn't seem like he's ever closed the door on a WWE return. And I honestly never really thought the door was closed, no matter what he said in a promo or what he said in an interview or any sort of frustrations he vented from being there. You got to expect him to vent some of that stuff. He was really jerked around a lot there a couple of times, especially at the end. So you couldn't blame him for being a little bit upset. But a lot of times, time heals everything. Time heals all wounds. And like we've seen so many times in the past with so many wrestlers that have left disgruntled and came back. Even Goldust, he was probably the most disgruntled of all of them, and even he came back. So that happens, and it really wasn't something that surprised me. In my mind, in the back of my mind, I've always felt that one day Rollins, Roman, and Ambrose or Moxley will be in the ring together. And let me ask you this. Let's say Moxley stays away for 3 to 5 years. Let's say in 2024, 3 years from now, it's rumored that he's jumping back to WWE. After this long run with Moxley, he made a career for himself prior to WWE's Moxley, and then after his Moxley. Does he come back as Moxley, or does he come back as Dean Ambrose? Will WWE insist that he has to be Dean Ambrose, or will he want to be Dean Ambrose, or will he want to be Moxley? That could be interesting as well. And Moxley's wife, Renee, is going to be on WWE Backstage this week, right? I forgot what night that airs, but she's returning, not to the company, just returning to the show. She's going to host that. And I think that's, I guess that's prior to the Rumble. It might be the day before the Rumble is when that airs. I can't remember. But Renee, it's going to be good to see her back. And she won't, I guess on that show, she's not going to be Renee Young. She'll be Renee Paquette or whatever. Or Renee Moxley. I'm kidding. But she'll be going by her real name, I guess, when she hosts that. It'll be weird for her to say this is Renee Young again. So we'll see. I'm glad she's coming back to that show just for one night. Should be interesting. We love Renee here on the channel. And we got a pregnant Renee, too. You got to remember that. Her and Moxley are going to be welcoming a kid. That's awesome. After that, we had the Hardy Party. Matt Hardy and the Private Party, taking on the team of Matt Sydal and Top Flight. Now, like I said, the Private Party, I have written Hardy Party. I mean all three of them, but I'm having trouble saying Private Party. They are #1 contenders for the Impact Tag Team titles, so they'll be getting a title shot at some point, I guess, over there, and we'll see what kind of implications that has. Seems like Matt is kind of being back to that big money Matt character he used to have back in the day, so him being associated with Private Party, I think is hilarious. He's doing great there, and of course, they got the win in that. I don't have the finish written down here. I'm trying to remember what it was. Maybe the finish was so good I thought I would remember it, and now I forgot. Anyway, Matt and Private Party won. Matt Hardy did not spend much time in the ring in this match. I do remember that, but I don't even recall how this one ended, but who cares? They won. Layla Hirsch and Penelope Ford had a match. Layla Hirsch is great. I love her. She's like 4'5". She's super tiny, but she's like a real amateur wrestler, and she's tough, and she's real kind of like bottom heavy and strong, and she can throw you around, and she's just strong as hell. And I like watching her wrestle because she's such a different looking type of wrestler. But she came up short here against Penelope Ford. Penelope had all sorts of help from Kip Sabian on the outside of the ring, doing a lot of distracting, allowing her to get the win there. But the story was Miro. Miro was out there with his butler because, of course, he beat Chuck Taylor last week. Chuck has to be his butler, but now he's Charles, and he's wearing a tuxedo. That was great stuff. And then after the match, after Kip helps out Penelope win, I think he like held Layla's leg down or something like that when Penelope won. Miro gets in the ring and brings in his butler, brings in Charles, and Orange Cassidy is sitting in the audience, and he points him out. I think he calls him a George Michael wannabe. Miro forces Charles to tell that George Michael's wannabe that he's no longer his best friend. I'm your best friend. So Charles has to say that on the mic. He has to tell Orange Cassidy that he's no longer friends with him and that he's Miro's best friend. We've got the wedding as well between Kip Sabian and Penelope Ford coming up at it's Beach Break, I think. Am I right about that? Not Beach Blast, it's Beach Break. So that's coming up, I think, in a couple of weeks. We'll get the wedding there. Something will happen there, of course. That should be interesting. I think originally that was scheduled to be in Miami, but everything's going to be taking place at Daly's place. So that'll be coming up in a couple of weeks as well. But I'm hoping, I guess it's 30 days is the Butler deal for Charles. I hope it definitely lasts the 30 days and he's out there every week on Dynamite because I got a huge kick out of that. We've got backstage. They go backstage to show the Good Brothers and Kenny Omega beating the hell out of Penta. So they got their hands on him. And I guess the reason they did that is because Omega and the Good Brothers are going to be facing the Death Triangle at Beach Break as well. That's going to be really interesting with Omega and Pac and all of that. So I guess that's why they went after Penta backstage. And I'm really looking forward to that 6-man a lot. And speaking of 6 men, the main event of Dynamite this week was the Inner Circle 6-man match. Or I'm sorry, it was a triple threat. And it was 3 tag teams. The winner was going to be the official tag team of the Inner Circle. It was Jericho and MJF taking on Proud and Powerful, taking on Sammy Hagar And they even had a cameo by Sammy Hagar on the show, giving a little moral support to Sammy and Jake. And I like that team. It's the team I like the most out of all these teams in the Inner Circle. I think that they have an interesting dynamic because of their size, and they could be fun, and it would give them both something significant to do. And I'd much rather see Sammy and Jake than Jericho and MJF. But in the end, this match was actually really good and really fun. Jericho and MJF won. Really scary ending, though. Near the end of the match, Jericho goes for the lion salt, but does not quite make it and came dangerously close from landing right on the top of his head. It's like it was a botch. He completed the lion salt, but it looked really bad, and it was very scary. Jericho could have hurt himself doing that. So Jericho, Father Time, catching up to him. He's still great. I still love that he's in the ring and performing at a relatively okay level at his age, but it's now starting to show, and he came really close. And I'm not criticizing him at all. I'm just saying this from the perspective of Jericho's safety. Like, don't do lion salts. It might be time to hang that up. That was very close, and we certainly would not want to see anything bad happen to Jericho. So that was a little bit scary there. But in the end, MJF wound up pinning Sammy Guevara with a handful of tights, giving the victory to Jericho and MJF. And the show went off the air pretty quickly after that, so we didn't get to see a whole lot of aftermath. It'll be interesting to see where this goes next week, because the Inner Circle does not seem to be that stable at all. This is more than one match now that Jericho has booked within his own faction, which is not good. There's going to be a lot of bad blood and animosity. And of course, you had a finish that wasn't fair with a handful of tights, and we'll see where all that goes next week. But things aren't looking good in Inner Circle land, and it looks like Jericho and MJF will be an actual team, and they might be targeting the tag team titles as well. So if they put the belts on Jericho and MJF, I can see them doing that. I wouldn't be surprised, but I think I'd prefer to see them on Guevara and Jake, because I like them together a lot, and I hope they keep them together. But we'll see now if they're going to wind up disbanding the entire Inner Circle. That thing I predicted right from the beginning, as soon as MJF hinted that he had interest in joining the Inner Circle, I've been saying all along that they'll turn on Jericho. MJF will be the new leader. Jericho will be a babyface, but there's so much dissension within the Inner Circle now. I'm not sure if it's going to go exactly that way, but at some point, this whole situation is imploding here. You can't have all these matches and all these issues between them, and MJF attempting to be the peacekeeper in the group when really he's kind of the one that started it to begin with, if you really trace it all the way back, which is a nice little touch there, that he's the one trying to keep the threads together. And I'm like, bitch, you're the one that caused all this. So I think that's pretty funny and pretty comical that they do it that way. But it seems like the Inner Circle is heading for a split at some point. We'll see. AEW needs a reboot. How can you reboot something that's a year and a half old? I don't think they need a reboot. What are they supposed to do? Yeah, no, a reboot's the last thing I think they need. They just need to keep going. Nobody was telling WCW that they needed a reboot in 1991. They were just trying to make it, trying to get there. Some things work, some things don't. But they'll be all right. I think things will be a lot better once fans get back in the arena. So that was it for Dynamite. But I will say this, as much as I thought this was okay, this was not one of the strongest Dynamites. I've seen a lot better Dynamites than this. And even though they had a 200,000 viewer victory over NXT in the ratings, I thought NXT was the better show this week. To me, it was just had some better wrestling, and things just seemed a little tighter and crisper, and I really liked the main event. And overall, I'm giving the nod to NXT. And like I said, they really got hammered in the ratings there by a couple of 100,000 viewers, but I thought they had a really solid, well-put-together show with a lot of dusty tag team classic matches in it, all of which were good. We opened up with one first-round match, Kushida and Leon Ruff taking on The Way. And I thought for sure going into this that Gargano and Austin Theory would be the victors here, but turned out to be Kushida and Ruff instead. Kushida pinned Gargano for the finish there, which in retrospect does make a lot of sense because Kushida and Gargano does seem to be the feud for the North American title now. So having the champion lose during the build to that title match usually is the way it goes. So I was actually happy with that finish there, and the match was really good. We had Karrion Kross squashing Ashante Adonis in a pretty quick match, and then after the match he beats up his tag team partner as well, Desmond Troy, locking him in the straight jacket or the cross jacket, and it was pretty much a squash here, only lasted a couple of minutes. Big showcase for Karrion Kross, and there was some news coming out of this as well that we'll talk about because Ashante Adonis is supposed to be in the Dusty Classic, and he got injured. They ran the injury angle here with Karrion Kross, and him and Desmond Troy would now have to be replaced, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Another dusty first-round match was up next. Imperium taking on the Lucha House Party here. Another good match. Really good match and kind of an upset. I was not expecting the Lucha House Party to win this here against the champs, but they did. Lince Dorado hit a shooting star press on Marcel Barthel for the win, and they move on. So very happy that Lucha House Party won there. Didn't expect that. Didn't see it coming. I thought they were kind of just plugged into this classic tournament to fill out the field. Wasn't expecting them to go very far, but they did, and that was a really good match. I enjoyed that a lot. After that, we had Regal and Beth Phoenix. I like this. Beth Phoenix and William Regal came out to the stage, and they talked, and they really hyped up the Women's Dusty Classic, and they talked about all of the former women wrestlers that have come through NXT, like Charlotte and Shayna Baszler and Asuka and Becky and Bayley and Sasha and Carmella and all of these great talents that have kind of paved the way. They had all of the women wrestlers were behind them as they were talking there, and then they introduced the first round match and actually brought them right out there to the stage, and it was going to be Mercedes Martinez and Toni Storm taking on Casey Catanzaro and Caden Carter. Now, again, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, on Wednesday night, I'm making my notes. During this match, when I'm watching the segment, they're coming out, and I just write in my notes, Mercedes Martinez, Toni Storm, defeat Casey and Caden. That's just the way I thought it would go. They are hugely undermatched here, and this is a major mismatch and underdog situation for the babyfaces, and I saw no way in the world they were going to be able to win, but they got a little help because during the match, Io Shirai showed up, attacked Mercedes Martinez on the outside of the ring, and that distracted Toni Storm enough to set up a really interesting and good finish, I think. Not quite sure what I thought of the finishing move, but really interesting finish with Caden Carter almost putting, like, they're in the corner. She's kind of putting Toni Storm in like a figure four, but then she kind of spins her around with her legs and flips Toni Storm right over on her back. Casey goes up to the top rope and gets in moonsault position, but winds up hitting what looks to be like a Falcon Arrow type of move, but wound up landing on her back on Toni Storm, and it really looked kind of crazy. It was just a Falcon Arrow-ish type of move, and I don't know how smart it is to do all that and land on your... There was no way for her to protect herself, but it was a really interesting double move combination here that looked really good and was awesome. I just don't know how safe it is, but in the end, the babyfaces pulled off a huge upset here, and Casey Catanzaro and Caden Carter won, and they will move on to the next round of the Dusty Classic. That was pretty surprising, and now it also sets up a pretty good women's match with Io Shirai and Mercedes Martinez. But if Io defends the belt, I'm not ready for Mercedes. I like her a lot, don't get me wrong, but she's kind of felt like a little bit directionless since she's been there. Hasn't had a whole lot of momentum because she came in and then joined Retribution, and now she's back and hasn't really developed anything. Where on the other hand, someone like Raquel Gonzalez, in my mind, is in much better position to win the title. So I'm hoping that Io survives the challenge from Mercedes whenever that happens. And then Raquel and Dakota are in the Dusty Classic, right? I would love for them to win it. I would love for Raquel and Dakota to win it if they're in it. I haven't looked at the brackets. So if they wind up winning that, then maybe after that you can give Raquel Gonzalez the title shot, and she will eventually be the one to dethrone Io Shirai. Somebody's got to take the belt from Io at some point. And if I had to put my vote in, I'm voting for Raquel and not Mercedes Martinez. So we'll see where that goes down the road. We had Bronson Reed beating Tyler Rust in a pretty decent match. Rust asked for this appearance, much to the displeasure of Malcolm Bivens. Didn't seem to be too happy with that, especially since he got his ass kicked out there. And Malcolm was like, yeah, dude, pick your battles more wisely next time and stop being so impulsive. So that was kind of funny. They also set up a future match with Finn Balor teaming up with his former nemesis as well, Kyle O'Reilly, to take on Lorcan and Birch some point in the future. Balor wants to face them. Regal's like, you got to find a partner. I don't want a partner or whatever, but then goes and hunts down O'Reilly. And much like Thatcher and Ciampa, they've got this professionalism between the two of them, and they're now going to team up to take on Lorcan and Birch somewhere down the line. We'll see. We had a Santos Escobar promo as well, where he's talking smack. Lucha House Party comes out. They have a fight. Kurt Stallion comes out to make the save there, and they're actually going to have a Cruiserweight title match next week on NXT. Escobar defending against Kurt Stallion, so we'll look for that next week. Should be a good match, and that left us with the main event. This was great. I was looking forward to this Fight Pit match. I am a huge, huge fan of Timothy Thatcher. I've said that a lot ever since he came into the company. I'm like, there's something about this guy. I would love for him to be modern wrestling's Chris Benoit, but with minus the killing the family part. You just take that away. I think Thatcher can kind of be what Benoit was. Just a gritty, hard-hitting guy you wouldn't fuck with, jacked up teeth, very, basic ring attire, somebody that'll just ground and pound you. He's not known for promos. He's not known for his rugged good looks. He's just known for fucking killing you. And I really want Thatcher to be that. And now that he's kind of creating, I don't want to say he's creating an Undertaker Hell in the Cell type of legacy for himself, but, this fight pit match is his. They've only had 2. He's been in both of them, and he's won them both. He beat Matt Riddle to send him to the main roster a few months back. So now it's Tommaso Ciampa and Thatcher. This is going to be the blow-off, of course, of their long-running feud. And at War Games, when Ciampa got the victory there, you figured this was probably going to lead to a blow-off with Thatcher winning. That's exactly what happened. Very good match, hard-hitting and brutal. They spent a lot of time on the platform above the ring before finally getting in the ring and having a match. And they were just beating the hell out of each other. And a couple of really good spots here with Thatcher surviving. Ciampa at one point slams Thatcher's head right into the steel cage and then hits him with the Widow's Bell into the fairy tale ending, into a submission, all of which Thatcher survived. And Thatcher's winds up getting Ciampa's leg kind of inside the cage. He locks his leg in the cage, and Ciampa has no choice but to submit. He's like really wrenching it. It's just the way it's positioned in the cage is like tearing the knee off of Tommaso, so he has no choice but to submit there. And Thatcher is now 2-0 in that fight pit match, and it was very brutal and very good. And then, of course, it was reported right after that due to the injury sustained by courtesy of Karrion Kross, beating the hell out of Ashante Adonis and Desmond Troy, there's now a vacancy. These guys are not, or at least Ashante is not medically cleared to wrestle in the Dusty Classic, so they need to be replaced, and they're going to be replaced by Timothy Thatcher and Tommaso Ciampa. So I think that is great. My wish is coming true. This is something I wished for all the way back in November after War Games when I saw that little brief moment of respect between the two of them. A light bulb went off. I'm like, as much as I love Thatcher and as much as I love Ciampa, neither one of these guys really realistically is in the title hunt right now, because it's Balor and Karrion Kross is back, and there's just a lot of guys in front of them in line, but you still don't want to see them do nothing or not them being featured on TV or anything like that. And Ciampa has had a lot of knee and neck problems and stuff like that, and you kind of wonder how long he can really continue to wrestle, because he's made mention himself that if they move me to the main roster, I'm retiring. I cannot sustain that travel schedule and work like that. Like, he'd prefer to be in NXT and just be there, and that's better for him for the longevity of his career. So if you team him up with Thatcher now, I know the Dusty Classic tournament brackets are very impressive. They are. There's a lot of good teams. So I don't want to say that the tag team division is weak, but it doesn't feel the same as like American Alpha and some of those other, tag team eras in NXT so far. I feel like it's a little bit weaker than it's been in the past. So they automatically just bring a ton of credibility to the tag team division, and they should be able to murder everybody. These two guys are killers, man. That's what they should call them. They should call them the Cripplers, or the Killers, not the Cripplers, but the Killers or the Murderers or something like that. I wouldn't want to be in a fight with either one of these two guys. And if they team up, they should be pretty dominant. So now that they are officially in the Dusty Classic, and according to one of you, they've already won their first match on 205 Live, I do not want to see them lose. I want to see them win now. At first, I thought it was going to be Undisputed Era, and it might still be, but I think they're going to be on opposite brackets. So like a Undisputed Era and Ciampa and Thatcher final would be fabulous. But now that they're in the tournament, I want them to win, because I just think they're such an awesome looking team, and it gives them both something significant to do. And Ciampa could now extend his career working a lighter workload in a tag team situation for like a year or however long they stay together. Of course, this won't be a permanent alliance, but they could have a little bit of a run here, 6 months to a year together, that would kill a lot of birds with one stone. It would put gold around the waist of two great pieces of talent if they do, in fact, win the tag team titles at some point. It gives Thatcher some much-needed gold that he hasn't tasted yet, and gives him and Ciampa both something significant to do on the roster, without putting them in the title hunt, because right now there's no room at the top for them right now. So I just feel like it's a good utilization of those guys and continues their story, and I like everything about it. So I hope the alliance lasts for a little while, and Thatcher can go on to big things, because he's another guy that I just don't have a whole lot of confidence in that WWE is going to do anything with if he ever moved to the main roster. To me, he gives me a very Aleister Black type of vibe. Like, he'll be great in NXT. He'll kick everybody's ass. He has great matches, and he's tough as nails, but then he gets to the main roster and he's nothing. So that's still all very, very possible for somebody like Thatcher, but I would love for them to position and book Thatcher as if he's modern wrestling's Chris Benoit, because he reminds me of him. So overall, between that Fight Pit match, all 3 of the Dusty Classic matches being really good with the underdogs winning, I think I liked NXT better this week. Even though they lost in the ratings, I thought their show was a little bit less cluttered, felt easier to follow. Shit on AEW is always all over the place, which is part of the reason why I like their show, because of it really gives you a range of, different types of entertainment and comedy, and it's your kind of quintessential wrestling show. I like that about AEW most weeks, but it's hit and miss, doesn't always land, and they don't always hit home runs. And this week was one of those weeks. So even though AEW won the ratings, I'm personally giving the nod to NXT for the better show this week. Very good stuff there. And we'll keep our eye on on the Dusty Classic. I'll take a look at those brackets later on tonight and see where we stand there. We'll get down to these SmackDown results here in just a second, but let me cruise up here and knock out a few more super chats that have been coming in. Oh yeah, there was a few. All right, Storm Adam, I got your Aleister Black one. That puts Tigerzilla Gama up next for the $2 super chat. Appreciate that. Which NXT call-up was wasted most in your opinion? Jesus, man. I'd have to they've all, so many of them. You might make an argument for somebody like Bo Dallas. He was champion, wasn't he? Look what they did with him. I mean, as bad as they treated Aleister Black, Ricochet, Shinsuke Nakamura, guys like that, they treated Bo Dallas worse, and he's a former champion. So probably the most wasted, though, probably would be Aleister. I'd go Aleister. Shinsuke, they tried. He did get a title match at WrestleMania. He did win the Royal Rumble. So I don't even know if I can say he was wasted. And he's kind of got a lot of momentum now, recently turned babyface. Even some light chatter of him potentially winning the Royal Rumble again, which I have my doubts, but he's in the conversation. I don't even know if I could put him on the list at this point anymore, even though I wouldn't say Shinsuke's been wasted. He's been more disappointing, where other guys like Aleister, Ricochet, I do feel like are being wasted. So I'd probably go Aleister on that one, to be honest, but I'm sure can be cases made for many, many more. Zane G, appreciate $5 more as well. Sting Wrestling is like Flair and TNA. Maybe. It could be. I don't think, again, if Sting just does 1 or 2 attraction matches, he works alongside Darby Allin, has one match, and then has like a match on TNT as his final official professional wrestling match ever, I'm all for that. I don't want the match with Rollins as my memory of Sting's last match. I want to rectify that, even if it means putting a 61-year-old in the ring. Now, if he's out there like Flair, working multiple matches, blading every chance he gets, taking his shirt off and elbow dropping invisible people on the mat, then that might be a problem. But Sting coming in for 1 or 2 matches and maybe a send-off, very protected matches, easy matches, tag matches, something like that, I'm all for. But if he goes a little crazy, then he could be a lot like Flair in TNA. Because I don't know how many, after the retirement with Shawn, how many official matches Flair had in TNA. You guys can probably tell me that, but it was a few, correct? Goldberg is 54, 55. Yeah, I was thinking they were 10 years apart, but it might be more like 7 or 8. Either way, physically, Goldberg is in much better position. Neither one of them should be in the ring, so don't misunderstand what I'm saying here, but Goldberg physically is more capable, I think, where he is from a physical standpoint. But in my mind, neither guy should really be in there. Deshaun, appreciate 5 more from you as well. Tamatonga called out Kenny on podcast for using the Bullet Club name recently. I would like to see New Japan, Bullet Club versus AEW Impact. Oh my God. Yeah, I have a feeling that there's going to be something there anyway. Like, him kind of planting the seeds there is great. We know Moxley's going to head over there to defend the U.S. title at some point and probably drop it. And we've heard some rumblings of, a working agreement with them in the future. And since we already have one with NWA and Impact, them doing some sort of a Bullet Club thing will be great. And with Tonga kind of planting that seed there, hey, you're using the Bullet Club name or whatever, I don't appreciate it. That could set the stage for some sort of a faction. And if you do some sort of 3-branded working agreement there, the match possibilities are endless for that. So I'm really hoping that New Japan gets in the mix. I think that would be a very smart move for AEW, especially for their fan base that tends to watch a little bit more of that stuff. I don't watch any Impact, but I do try to keep a little bit track of New Japan as best I can. I'm a subscriber to New Japan World. I watch some of their shows. I watch Wrestle Kingdom every year. I'm a little bit more aware of what they've got going on than Impact. And I think if there wasn't COVID right now, I would watch more of Impact. It's just every time I've turned it on, it reminds me of the Performance Center. Remember how bad those PC shows were when COVID first started. That's what it reminds me of, and I can't watch it for any more than a couple of minutes before it's just a turnoff to me. It's not their fault. So once, fans get back in the mix and we start resuming some sort of a normal life here, maybe I'll try to get into Impact. But in the meantime, AEW is doing a good job of, letting me know what's going on there. So, and that Hard to Kill stuff was crazy with the Karate Man and all that. My God, they're doing some weird stuff over there in Impact Land. $2 more from Tigerzilla Game. Appreciate that. I hope Moxley will spend more time in Japan. I do too. I have a feeling he's going over there just to drop that belt and do his duty. But man, if he kept it and went over there and worked a couple of more matches, I'd be very much into that, especially if a working agreement does get struck up between the two companies that will be mostly focused on the Bullet Club stuff. But you could definitely have Moxley going over there and having some matches. And I couldn't imagine seeing like Tanahashi or Okada coming over here and working. But, maybe one day we could get to that point. Would be pretty cool to get to get Omega and Okada in the U.S. We'll see. Chris Miner, I think you're next. There you are, man. Appreciate the $5 more as well. Favorite non-Royal Rumble match at Royal Rumble? Jericho, Benoit, 2001. That was good. Cena versus Brock, Rollins, 2015 are your go-to top two for me. The triple threat in 2015 was good. I probably have a few more that I like more. Jericho and Benoit is definitely on the list. That's one of my favorites. As a matter of fact, a match that it's the anniversary today. Royal Rumble 2000, 21 years ago today. Dudley Boys, Hardy Boys. Tables match. Royal Rumble, Madison Square Garden. Fucking great. I reviewed that Royal Rumble the year before last, Royal Rumble 2000. So it's on my channel if you want to hear my thoughts about it. But it's one of my favorite Royal Rumbles, and that's the match I think that put the Hardys on the map officially. The No Mercy match a couple of months before with Edge and Christian, the ladder match, got everybody to take notice. But that match in New York against an established team like the Dudleys, like that, when the Hardys are just a year removed from their jobber attire, wearing their Young Bucks ring gear, getting their asses kicked every week on TV, just being enhancement talent for so long, and then finally getting a run. They change up their look. They beat Edge and Christian in that ladder match at No Mercy, and everybody's like, holy shit, that was a great match. Then they go into the Garden in a match against the Dudleys that's their own match. They're known for tables, and they go in there and beat them. That was the night to me that solidified the Hardy Boys as top players, and I was so happy for them. I was proud of them because I was like, I saw them come up. I saw Matt and Jeff when they were little twerp teenage kids, wrestling little independent shows around North Carolina. We would see them wrestle dark matches on WWE all the time. To see them, excuse me, to see them come this far, and now they're in Madison Square Garden beating a team like that, that was a big deal for me. That was the day the Hardy Boys arrived. I consider that match even more significant than the Edge and Christian match with the Matt Ladder and Terry Runnels and all that. It was like that one got everybody to take notice. This match gave them the push to the top that they needed. So I'd probably go Jericho, Benoit, or that tag. I got to think of some other ones. We had any good title matches at the Royal Rumble? Yeah, Brett Razor in 94 Rumble. That was dumb. I'm trying to think of everything. 95, 96, 97. I can't think of any really good matches in some of these years. Royal Rumble 99, like the title matches and stuff. What was the title match in 01? 01, I think, was Triple H and Angle. Yeah. I'm going to go Jericho and Benoit in the tag match I just mentioned. Tigerzilla, 5 more from you as well. Appreciate it. I usually don't whine about booking, but I am pissed Imperium are out in the first round. Yeah, I understand. I get that totally. I'm not crazy, right? They are the tag champs, right? Imperium? Or am I crazy? Yeah, hey, Joe Cronin is here. Everybody say hi to Joe in the house. Thatcher will be good for 1 or 3 years in NXT, then die after main roster on being released. I don't know how long you've been hanging out here, Joe, but I literally just said that. He gives me Aleister Black vibes. He gives me vibes of a guy that's just going to tear it up in NXT and be so badass, credible, and awesome. And then the minute he gets to the main roster, it's like totally useless. And I am afraid you're right. Everybody go sub Joe Cronin's channel there if you haven't. Actually, you are. If you're sub to me, you're sub to him. So I'm sure you guys know. But in case you don't, go check him out. Luigi Dora, appreciate the $2 as well. Thatcher and Tommaso next match against the U.S. Oh, okay, that's next. Oh, shit. So I haven't looked at the brackets. That's my problem. Thank you for that. I was thinking that Ashante and Troy were on the opposite bracket of Undisputed. but I guess they weren't. So holy shit. So that match is going to come up in round 2. Holy crap. Well, I want to see Thatcher and Tommaso win it all. But in order to do that, they're going to have to beat Roddy and Adam. You know what? I don't even care, because that match alone is going to be great. Just say that out loud. Timothy Thatcher, Tommaso Ciampa versus Roderick Strong and Adam Cole. Pass the lotion. I don't even care who wins that. It's going to be awesome to see. After that, who did I miss? Tiger with more. Appreciate the $2, dude. Triple H. Oh, yeah. There you go. That's the other match I meant to say. That is my favorite title match in Royal Rumble history. Triple H, Cactus Jack, Royal Rumble 2000. No holds barred shit or whatever. Mick Foley took the pedigree on the tax face first. Holy shit. That match was absolutely insane and awesome. And like I said, 2 years ago, I reviewed that pay-per-view. It's on my channel, so check it out under my pay-per-view and DVD review playlist. You can find it right there, or just search for it. And I talk a lot about that match, and I have a lot of memories of it because I ordered it on pay-per-view. Still have the original recording on pay-per-view, complete with Sunday Night Heat and all that stuff. And I was convinced. I got to say, I was not as smart as I thought I was. And I thought for sure that Cactus was going to win. And looking back in retrospect, of course he wasn't. You know, he was kind of brought back to get Triple H over and head him into WrestleMania. But in my head, they were going to put Cactus over and he was going to win the title in Madison Square Garden and have this great moment. And that's what I was expecting. So it was actually quite a shock to me when he took that pedigree on the tax. And I'm like, I don't think he's going to kick out. And then he didn't. And he lost. I thought he was going to win. I liked the idea of Cactus Jack being WWE champion. I thought it was great. A year after he won it as Mankind. And then he had, he started suffering the effects of all those concussions in the Hell in the Cell match. And I think by late 99, he had made the decision to retire. But because of Austin's injury, they convinced him to stick around for a program with Triple H. He got himself in great shape. You go look at Mankind around the time, like summer of 99, around the time like Owen Hart's passing and stuff. I think he was in the middle of writing his book and he was kind of mentally checked out. He was not in good shape. He was very big. But when he did the deal and started that feud with Triple H at the end of 99 and then went into the Royal Rumble, by the time he got to the Rumble as Cactus, he looked great. He looked like the Cactus Jack of old, physically. So Mick was in amazing shape that night. That was a great match. Angle and Benoit 03. Thank you again for that, Tigerzilla, and reminding me there. You guys are helping me out. Yeah, those are both on my list for sure. They might even both be above the match I mentioned earlier. I think I like both of those more than the Hardys and the Dudleys. I just appreciated that Hardys match because that was the match that solidified them as being one of the best teams in the WWE. But yeah, those are great. Armand, you want friends? Well, let's see. What do we got in here in the chat right now? 130-ish people. We have 134 friends right now. By the way, if you guys are here, can you do me a favor and smash that like button for me, please? I'd appreciate it. Yeah, I would probably agree with that as well, Bruce. The Punk Rock 2013 match was not the greatest in-ring match, but seeing The Rock come back and win the title was pretty awesome. Even if he had to beat Punk to do it, I was fine with that. I've always been a big Rock fan, and I had no issue with him winning the title again. I liked it. Anyway, let's cruise over to the SmackDown results here, and then we'll talk a little bit about the Royal Rumble. And then I've got a couple of Twitch and gaming questions for you, and I'll get out of here. So this is going to be a long podcast. We've been going for 2 hours already, so thanks for hanging out today. By the way, for those of you who were not here earlier, tomorrow night on the channel, right after the NFL games finish up here in the States, we will be watching the Royal Rumble 2002 live on my YouTube channel. So tune in tomorrow night, probably around 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern, somewhere around there. We'll be up here watching the entire Royal Rumble 2000 pay-per-view, or 2002 pay-per-view, and we're going to hang out. Should be a lot of fun. Last night's SmackDown was decent. We had some okay stuff on this. I didn't totally hate the show. I thought it was all right. Now, a lot of it was surrounding the Paul Heyman, Roman Reigns, Adam Pearce, Kevin Owens situation. We knew they were going to have a response to this. Roman and Heyman came out to the ring for a promo. Roman is pretty pissed off about last week. He even threatens to do exactly what Adam Pearce did last week when he said, "Oh, I've got an injured leg, and it states in every contract that the card is subject to change and a replacement must be found due to an injury." And that's when Kevin Owens comes out, signs the contract, gets the match. Now Roman is threatening to injure himself or be hurt to where he can't be cleared to wrestle as well, and he'll take away this big match and screw things up for Adam Pearce. That draws out Adam Pearce and says, okay, that's enough or whatever, and Roman goes on to insult him and said, no wonder you never made it to WWE, and Heyman is laughing at him and making fun of him, and Pearce says, look, I can take it from Roman, like I understand that I have to take it from him, but I don't have to take this shit from your fat walrus ass, and kind of gets in his face, and then Heyman gets all big and bad and winds up telling Pearce that he's from New York and he'll whip his ass and he'll be facing Adam Pearce in the main event tonight. Adam Pearce versus Paul Heyman is your main event. So you knew that something was going to be up there, and you figured it was going to be a way to sucker Adam Pearce in and wind up beating his ass. But they tried to swerve you here because later on backstage, Heyman has all this confidence when he challenges Adam Pearce because he's assuming that Roman is just going to beat Adam Pearce's ass for him. But backstage, Roman says to Heyman, he's like, look, you're the one that made this match. You need to man up. If you can't go out there and be a man, I can't have you representing me if you're too scared to go out there and handle your business. So basically, grow a set of balls and get your ass out there and face Adam Pearce. So they tried to throw you off here like Roman was going to ditch Paul Heyman. I had a feeling when I saw that segment that it was going to be a ruse, that it was all part of it, but it did get me thinking a little bit about when this alliance does start having its problems. Now, I'm not anywhere near ready for the Heyman and Roman alliance to end. Not even close. I need a minimum of another year of this before I even want to think about it. But it's probably going to happen quicker than that, and at some point, inevitably, something's going to happen. And one of the reasons that it might become strained is when Brock ever comes back into the fold. We have no idea what Brock's deal is. At one point, he was rumored for a WrestleMania match this year. Now he's really not. We don't know if he's coming back or not, or if he's going to sit this WrestleMania out and maybe come back later on, which might be the best thing for him. I mean, he's lost a lot lately. So when Brock comes back, he's got to start winning a little bit. So I don't know if we really want to see him winning the title at WrestleMania or anything. So when he gets back, that could present some interesting dynamics with Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman, because they could do a deal where, like they teased on SmackDown last night, where Roman maybe starts giving Heyman a hard time. Roman starts abusing him verbally, physically, maybe starts treating Paul Heyman the way he treats Jey Uso, and strains their relationship. And then Brock comes in to kind of save Paul Heyman from, Roman's tyranny or whatever. And then it sets up that Roman Brock stuff. Now, when I put this on Twitter, and I knew I was going to get it, I didn't have enough characters to tell people not to say it, so they said it anyway. And of course, I can't believe how many people said when I propose a Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar match, what? Roman Reigns and Lesnar for a fifth time? Nobody wants to see that. I don't even know where to start with that. I don't know what it is that says that, you don't want to do it again. It's not the same match. If you book Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar in a match in 2021, it's essentially going to be for the first time. We've never seen these guys wrestle with this dynamic. We haven't seen this Roman face this Brock. Now it's intriguing. Arguments can be made that in previous years, nobody cared about Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar because nobody wanted to see Roman Reigns beat Brock Lesnar, even when he was a babyface. Now the dynamic completely changes. You have Roman with a completely different attitude now. He's dominant. He doesn't give a shit. He's claiming to be the tribal chief, the king of the WWE, the head of the table. Nobody is higher than him. If there's one guy in the company that's kind of had his number, it's been Brock. Brock's victories over Roman, Brock has beaten Roman. Roman has beaten Brock, but not really, not definitively, not clean. I mean, well, yeah, maybe clean. The deal at SummerSlam where he speared him and the chair flew over Brock's face and he got the pin during that, it was like kind of a quick pin type of thing. What I think we need for Roman's character, for him to truly make this full tribal chief transformation, is he needs to murder Brock Lesnar. Not murder him to the point where it's designed to get sympathy for Brock and make him a babyface or anything, but to make the story about Roman, about the change that he's gone through and about how dominant he now is, and now he truly is the big dog. Because back when he was a babyface cutting all the cheesy promos, you can say, I'm the big dog all you want. You got to prove it. And for him to beat Brock and to take Brock down and to dominate Brock, that might be a stretch. Might be hard to dominate Brock, but if he beats Brock to the same degree that McIntyre beat Brock last year at WrestleMania, I think that would really solidify Roman. It has nothing to do with how many times they wrestled. Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan wrestled a hell of a lot more times than 5. Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock wrestled a lot more than 5. Cena and Orton, a lot more than 5. All legends wrestle a hell of a lot more. There should not be any sort of limit on how many matches you can have. I think the fans just automatically go to that criticism, but I don't care if they wrestled 100 times in the past. I still want to see this. I want to see this attitude Roman versus Brock Lesnar. The dynamic can change. Back in the day, Roman was fighting up the uphill battle. Roman was dominated by Brock. Remember WrestleMania 31 in 2015 in San Francisco? That was the main event. Seth Rollins cashed in. That entire match was Brock beating the piss out of Roman Reigns. Roman had virtually no offense throughout that whole match. WrestleMania 34, same thing. Roman Reigns kicked out of 35 F5s, but in the end, he was left laying in a pool of his own blood, piss, and vomit. So every time these guys have wrestled, Brock is beating this shit out of Roman Reigns. They need to rectify this. Roman now needs to come back and do that to Brock at some point. So it's getting to the point now where Brock losses aren't like that surprising. That's why when I think Brock comes back this time, he's got to win for a little while. And because, if he just comes back for one match, the last time he's been in the ring, he was beaten handily by Drew McIntyre. You don't just turn up back on TV, go into another match, and get beaten handily again. It feels like he's going to have to build a little bit of momentum, and maybe you build a Brock and Roman match for SummerSlam or something like that. You have Brock come back. He wrestles somebody at WrestleMania, hopefully not for the title, but winds up winning and is back or something, or maybe he just comes back in the summer. I don't know. But whatever you do, eventually you have to have a Roman and Brock match, because what is Brock going to think about this alliance? Is he okay with it? Is he cool with it? You would think that when he comes back to TV, he's going to be upset at Paul Heyman for, hey, why are you doing business with this guy after all the problems I've had with him? You're going to betray me and go with him. Or, as we've talked about in recent podcasts before, they could do a two-man power trip. You could have Heyman represent Brock on Raw and Roman on SmackDown, have them both win titles, and then come together as an alliance before you do the eventual match and confrontation between the two. Whatever they do there is so much to digest. There's so much meat on that bone, and there's so much potential for story when you factor in Heyman and you factor in who Roman Reigns now is as a character and where Brock is in his career. This is a lot more juicy and interesting than any of their previous matches before. So like I said, I don't care if they've wrestled 276 times. I want to see the 277th. Absolutely. And that's where you could potentially go with this in the future if they do something like this again. Now, as we'll talk about in a minute, in the main event, it was all bullshit, but it did get me thinking that what's going to happen when Roman starts getting mad at Paul Heyman, or when he has an issue with Paul Heyman, or when he does something or treats Paul Heyman in a way that Paul Heyman doesn't appreciate, to where maybe he calls up his friend and say, hey, will you come deal with this guy for me? So I think that could be a potential way to bring Brock back into the fold at some point, or kick off some sort of an issue with him and Roman Reigns. So that made me think a lot about the Roman situation. And hell, if you have Brock back, if you bring Brock back now, maybe even have him win the Royal Rumble and challenge Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, you could have Roman Reigns beat him. But, then again, I think when Brock returns, before he loses again, he's got to win. He's got to have a victory or a couple of victories prior to his next loss. Otherwise, his losses aren't going to be as meaningful. I still think it carries a lot of weight to beat Brock Lesnar, but you can't just do it back to back to back to back like that. There's got to be spread out. So I think Brock, next time he's around, wins a little bit and then goes down. At least that's my hope. Anyway, we'll talk more about the what happened with Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman at the end of SmackDown here in the main event. Sami Zayn is out next. This is great. Sami is still protesting the fact that he's no longer Intercontinental Champion. He is saying, not my calling, Biggie, not my champion, which is hilarious. And he comes out with a pair of handcuffs and a little picket sign. And I think it's, stand against something injustice or whatever. But he's got a chair, so he's not stand, even though his sign says stand, he's sitting. He handcuffs himself to the barricade in the aisleway. So to protest his displeasure or whatever. While he's doing that, Asuka interrupts. She comes down to the ring, and it's going to be a tag team match with her and Charlotte taking on the Riot Squad. So this is a non-title match. It's going to be Ruby and Liv taking on Asuka and Charlotte. Billie Kay is with the Riot Squad as well. She's on the outside of the ring, kind of dressing like them. She messed up last week, costing them the match. She does the same thing here, screwing up, distracting the referee when Ruby has Asuka pinned. Ruby's got Asuka pinned in the ring. Referee doesn't see it because Billie's making a commotion on the outside of the ring, allowing Asuka to recover. She hits Ruby with kind of like a knee to the face, followed by a natural selection from Charlotte, who pins Ruby Riott for the win, and the tag team champs They didn't retain. It was a non-title match, but they win there. And then after the match, backstage, after a couple of commercials, Billie Kay is trying to apologize to the Riot Squad and basically says, I just want the best for us or something. And then Ruby's like, there is no us. So apparently they have kicked Billie Kay to the curb, and she's no longer going to be associated with them, I suppose. But I like Billie Kay in this role. She's kind of funny when she's out there dressed crazy and acting crazy and all that stuff. So she's pretty entertaining. I know a lot of people don't like her. I do. And I kind of like the way she's bouncing around from different teams and things like that, trying to become a manager. I guess she wants to become a manager. Like I said, she's kind of like she's got a little bit of Sherry in her, sensational Sherry, just with her sheer enthusiasm and her voice. Like Sherry would scream, just scream. You could hear her off camera so easily. And she was so animated. She was climbing up the fucking walls on the outside of the ring. And Billie Kay is, I'm not saying they're the same, but Billie Kay has a shades of Sherry in her. I know a lot of people would be disgusted with that comparison. Well, she's nothing like her. She's a little bit like her. Just a little bit like her. At least in voice and enthusiasm. After that, we had a Daniel Bryan promo. Daniel Bryan came out to the ring, and he's talking about the Royal Rumble, and then he wants to win it, and yada yada. Cesaro then comes out and gets in his face and insults him, and Daniel Bryan challenges him to a match, but Cesaro says no. He already beat him last week. He doesn't need to beat him again, and instead he's going to issue an open challenge to anybody on the roster. And it turns out that Dolph Ziggler answers the challenge for some reason, one half of the tag team champions. He comes out and says, I'll face you. And so we get the match. We get Ziggler versus Cesaro with Daniel Bryan on commentary. Cesaro wound up winning pretty cleanly with the neutralizer there. And I like that they're giving Cesaro some victories here, some big ones, especially last week against Daniel Bryan. And Daniel Bryan has now had a couple of losses in a row. Shinsuke has even had a couple of good outings with that great performance in the Gauntlet match a couple weeks back. And now there's been some talk about who is going to win the Royal Rumble matches, the men's match. And when it comes to the men's match, I think that Daniel Bryan would really kind of be on the top of my list in terms of who's in it so far. Actually, let me scroll down here and read the names just so we can see who's there so far. I think only about 12 or 50, so less than half the field has been announced in the men's match. We have Daniel Bryan, Bobby Lashley, AJ Styles, Randy Orton, Otis, Miz, Jey Uso, Cesaro, Jeff Hardy, Sami Zayn, Dolph Ziggler, Nakamura, and Big E are announced for the Royal Rumble already. So aside from a big return, aside from a Brock or aside from an Edge or somebody like that, or a Rock or a CM Punk, I suppose, somebody like that, and it's going to be a current roster person wins the Rumble. Daniel Bryan is at the very top of my list. I'd love it if Lashley won. I'd love it if Big E won. I'd love it if Nakamura won. I'd love it if Sami Zayn won, Cesaro won, any of those guys. But Daniel Bryan, it feels like WWE owes us that one. Remember, 2014 and especially 2015 when he was dumped out so quickly and the fans lost their mind. And the previous year when it was, Batista winning it and everything. And then Roman won in 2015 and they booed him out of the building, even though The Rock was right there by his side. I feel like WWE really did us wrong with Daniel Bryan, and I would love to see him win it again. And Roman Reigns versus Daniel Bryan, I wouldn't exactly hate that if they wound up going in that direction. I still think Roman, needs a really big, player, a really big opponent, but that might be held off until they come here to LA for 39 and you do Roman and Rock, the match that I thought they were probably going to do this year had COVID not happened. But things are different now. So Daniel Bryan would very much be on the top of my list to win the Royal Rumble because I feel like it's something that WWE owes to us. They put us through hell 6 and 7 years ago with that nonsense. And for Daniel Bryan to win now, it would kind of be redemption. And it might really be his last crack at being at the top, if he won the Rumble and, challenged for the title. And potentially, he doesn't have to win the title. The winner of the Royal Rumble does not have to win the title. There's no rule. So just him winning it, going into Mania, having that big WrestleMania title match payday, I'd be so happy for Daniel Bryan. Even if he didn't win, I don't think I'd be flipping out. I know the fans would because they flip out about everything. But if Daniel Bryan won the Rumble, went into WrestleMania to face Roman Reigns and got beat, I'm not going online and say he's buried. He lost to Roman Reigns. It's a big deal. So we'll see. But Daniel Bryan, I would very much love it if he did. I would love it if Cesaro did as well. But right now, they seem to be focused on a lot in terms of the Rumble. Nobody on Raw, maybe AJ Styles, has really been talking a lot about the Royal Rumble. So I don't know who the front runners right now are. And I don't think WWE even really has an idea. As a matter of fact, I think it was The Observer put out a report this week about WrestleMania. And I think Meltzer was mentioning that as of right now, according to his sources, there is no set in stone title matches yet for WrestleMania. They're still figuring it out. It just depends on, what they do. Edge could get back involved, and Randy Orton could be involved on Raw. And on SmackDown, you could see anybody come back. Brock could get back in the mix. I don't know. I have no idea what they're going to do. But the way they seem to have this little miniature focus on Bryan, Cesaro, and Nakamura right now, I would love it if it was one of them. So let me know your predictions in the chat. Who do you want? Who do you think? Who are you rooting for? That sort of thing. Right now, I got a lot of favorites. When I look at the field, I like them all. The only people in there I don't want to see win it are Otis, Miz, Jey Uso, Jeff Hardy, and Dolph Ziggler. No interest in them, but everybody else I'd be cool with. Bryan, yes. Lashley, yes. AJ, yes. Orton, yes. Cesaro, yes. Sammy, very much yes. Nakamura, yes. And Big E, of course, because I love Big E. But I feel like you can almost cancel out Big E and Lashley because they're champs, and they probably won't win. But I've been holding out hope for Lashley for SummerSlam. Something about it. Lashley, Brock, SummerSlam is a match I'd like to see. Because not only do I want Roman to beat Brock, I want Lashley to beat Brock too. So you can't just bring Brock in and have him lose 5 matches. So he's gonna have to win some too. And I think because of that, the likelihood of Brock being champion again is very high. So we'll see, man. As long as it's not Goldberg, it's all I care about. What happened next on SmackDown? Oh yeah, the obstacle course. We're doing this again. Bayley challenged Bianca Belair to an obstacle course. This was stupid. I guess it was a little bit better than Sami Zayn and Bobby Lashley, but it was the same thing. And I feel like next week on SmackDown, Bayley's going to bring out Bianca Belair's sisters and make fun of them or something in some weird, stupid segment. But anyway, they get the obstacle course set up. It's these little wall climbing things, some hurdles to run through, and they got a big 400-pound tire on the stage and a bunch of crap. So Bayley decides that she wants to go first, and this was so dumb. Bayley went so slow; it looked like they were purposely trying to pad her time so Bianca could win. And I thought what they were going to do at first, because Bayley was so slow to do everything. She did the tire, then she ran through the little mini hurdles, and then hopped over the 2 walls. But in between each little obstacle, she kind of stopped and poised herself and took a breath and everything, and really taking her time. She was going through the obstacle course at the very same speed that wrestlers climb up ladders in ladder matches. It was so damn slow. I'm like, hurry up, girl. You're going to get slaughtered in this. So I thought the whole point was for her to run through the obstacle course. I think she got a time of 1:17. And I thought Bianca was going to come out there and do it in 10 seconds. I thought they were going to make it to where Bianca beat her by a full minute. But instead, when it was Bianca's turn, what Bayley did was put a bunch of extra obstacles in her way. After she did the tire, the hurdles are now bigger. Bayley just had to step over hers. Bianca has to jump over her hurdles. Then she has to do the 2 wall climbs. And then there's the other portion there on the outside where I think you have to pick something up and carry it. And I forgot what Bayley even picked up and carried. But Bianca doesn't get that. She gets Otis. All 400 pounds of Otis is sitting there. Bianca Belair picks Otis up on her shoulders and walks him to the other side of the ring, which is incredible. And she wound up completing the obstacle course and beating Bayley by 20 seconds. And then, of course, as soon as it's over, Bayley attacks her and beats the hell out of her. And that's that. So Bayley and Sami Zayn, it's interesting that they both have obstacle course segments before, because they were 2 of the baby faces that I went on record saying that I didn't think they'd be good heels, and they're both very good. So they were probably the 2 best people to do something like this. It was just so dumb. It just didn't look good. It reminded me of the old days of NXT when they'd run through all the obstacle courses and stuff, but this was so bad. And just Bayley did not do a good job running through that or making it look like she was trying very hard at all. So it's not a surprise that Bianca Belair beat her, because Bianca Belair is a real legitimate athlete. We've seen her posting running track and jumping hurdles and stuff. She's ridiculous. So they're both in the Rumble. We'll see what happens there with the 2 of them. But I like the little issue between them, aside from the obstacle course stuff. Wasn't very good. We had Baron Corbin taking on Dominic Mysterio as well. Backstage, Dominic tells Rey to stay behind. Dominic kind of had a goof up last week. Just a tiny little seed planting of potentially some sort of issue, or maybe dissension or tension, I should say, between father and son. This week, Dominic asks Rey to hang back. Rey does it reluctantly, but says, hey, I'm not going to ever let you get hurt. If I see something, if I feel like I need to run out there, I will, or something like that. And then they have the match. Baron Corbin, He reminds me of Alliance Stephanie with that leather hat he was wearing. He looked so ridiculous. He reminded me of her. But I'm going to say this about this match. It was good. It was really good. They worked well together. Corbin took care of Dominic, beat him with the end of days, and that was that. But, I mean, nobody likes Baron Corbin, right? I understand we all don't like Baron Corbin and everything, but here is a news flash for you. Brace yourself. He can work. He can work. If you think Baron Corbin cannot wrestle, you do not have functioning eyes. I understand that his face makes us all puke. Me too. His face, his voice, everything about him is horrible. He sucks. We hate his guts. I'm kidding. Baron Corbin makes everybody very annoyed, but he can work in the ring. His matches are all very good. I've never seen him on Botchamania. I'm sure he's been on there before, but you know, he seems like a guy that can just get it done in there. He has really good matches with whoever he works with. And I think at least, as much as we hate Baron Corbin, you at least got to give him credit for that. If you think he can't work, then you got no business watching this form of entertainment because you don't understand. He's very good. And the match with Dominic was pretty decent. I wish Corbin was a little bit more likable to go along with that pretty decent ring ability. For a guy his size, he is good. He is absolutely good. Pains me to say it, but sometimes the truth hurts. And you just have to be honest with yourself and don't bullshit yourself like so many wrestling fans do. Admit it. Be confident in who you are. Corbin's good in the ring. Say it. Shout it from the rooftops. That brings us to the main event. Paul Heyman taking on Adam Pearce. You knew this was going to be bullshit. Roman Reigns made it sound like Paul Heyman was on his own taking on Adam Pearce, but you knew that was bullshit because Roman has been salivating at the opportunity to get revenge on Adam Pearce for what he did to him last week. So this was great. Adam Pearce comes out first, kind of wearing he kind of was wearing what he would wear in Ring of Honor. I think he even had a robe on or something. Gets in the ring and he's ready for the match. Paul Heyman comes out. He's very amped up and he's ready to fight. He starts walking down to the ring, and as soon as he gets near the ring steps, he trips and falls, and he's hurt. He hurt himself. And just like it says in all WWE contracts, just like Adam Pearce did to them last week, if you're unable to compete, the card is subject to change, and you are going to have to face a replacement. So they turned the tables on Adam Pearce this week, doing to him exactly what they did to him, or what he did to them last week, and out comes Roman Reigns to replace Paul Heyman in the match. And, of course, he starts beating the shit out of Pearce, absolutely destroys Adam Pearce, but Kevin Owens winds up showing up. He makes the save. He's in disguise. He was because I think Roman has got Pearce he's dragging him all through the Thunderdome, and I think what he was going to do was go up to one of the platforms and like throw him off through a table like he did to Kevin Owens a couple of weeks back. He was basically going to recreate that with Adam Pearce. Owens is in disguise as a production guy or something, rips off the disguise, starts attacking Roman Reigns, and this is something that I haven't seen happen to Roman Reigns since he's been back. This was about 3 straight minutes of Kevin Owens just beating the shit out of him, throwing him around, throwing him up against shit, just beating the hell out of him, eventually gets him back to the ringside area and hits him with a pop-up powerbomb through the table, laying out Roman Reigns, annihilating him brutally for about 3 straight minutes as Paul Heyman just sits there like, what the fuck? So that was a great ending to SmackDown. I loved it. I'm so excited for this last man standing match at the Royal Rumble. I think we can all agree, or at least we did, that Roman Reigns is probably going to be champion going into WrestleMania. But man, given the showing that Kevin Owens has been giving everybody since his feud with Roman Reigns started, I would not be opposed at all to him beating Roman and winning the title here. Maybe they can do something a little bit like what they did, I've mentioned this before, what they did in 1999, where Owens can kind of play the role of Mankind and win the title. And maybe between now and WrestleMania, Roman wins it back and then still goes in to defend against somebody. But if you give Kevin Owens that little cup of coffee with the title, I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to that, especially if he can get back in the title hunt after WrestleMania. But as much as we like Owens and as much as he's really been impressive with his run here, I don't know if he's in the cards to be champion going into WrestleMania. But a last man standing match is going to be good. And if there was ever a way to get the belt off of Roman without beating him, this is it. You got to remember, the Mankind and Rock match, Mankind pinned him underneath the forklift or whatever. So they could do something similar here with Roman Reigns and actually have him drop the belt. But maybe not. We'll see what happens. But I wouldn't be against it at all. What do you guys think? Any chance at all of Kevin Owens beating Roman Reigns for the title? Man, I've been talking for 2.5 hours and my voice is going hoarse. Yeah, Seth Rollins as well. Seth will probably be back and involved in the Rumble, I guess. His name will probably be added to the list, right? He hasn't declared yet. By the way, in terms of declaring for the Royal Rumble, Adam Pearce attempted to clear this up on social media this week, tweeting out, which is a good tweet for him to make because we've all been making fun of WWE's wishy-washy ass rules on Raw this past week. Literally, in one segment, Adam Pearce tells somebody that you can't just declare for the Royal Rumble. Go to commercial, come back, 2 women declare for the Royal Rumble. So it's like, what the F? So he finally tried to explain this to everybody, saying that who WWE deems able to declare can declare. Everybody else has to qualify. So management has a list of people that are allowed to declare for it, and others have to qualify, which tried to explain it, but still WWE probably made him tweet that out just so we'd stop complaining about it. But anyway, let's just run through the Rumble card real quick, what we've got. Just 4 matches so far, 2 title matches, 2 Rumbles. We got Goldberg, of course, taking on Drew McIntyre. He will be going face-to-face in the ring with McIntyre on Raw this Monday. So we'll see. This was announced last week. I guess they're assuming that McIntyre is all good to go after his quarantine. So hopefully he's COVID-free and negative, and this segment can actually happen. Because you don't want to have them change a big title match right before a show again and have COVID screw everything up. So we'll see what happens on Monday, but man, we'll talk about this a lot this week. We'll start on Monday night. I'm sure we'll spend a ton of time on Goldberg and McIntyre this week after we see what they do in the ring. But man, I tell you, I am so nervous that Goldberg's going to beat him, and I'm going to be so pissed when he does. But we'll start worrying. I'm not going to get myself worked up yet. We'll do that next week. I want it to be a happy weekend. And of course, like we just talked about, we've got Roman Reigns taking on Kevin Owens, defending the Universal title in a last man standing match. That is guaranteed to be good. And then, of course, we have the Men's Rumble and the Women's Rumble. Women's Rumble, we've got Nia Jax, Shayna Baszler, Charlotte, Bayley, Bianca, Mandy, Dana, Peyton, Alexa, Ruby, Liv, and Tamina, all announced for that so far. And the Men's Rumble, we've got Bryan, Lashley, AJ, Orton, Otis, Miz, Usos, Cesaro, Hardy, Sami Ziggler, Nakamura, and Big E for the men. So both fields are a little bit less than half full. We've got some people we can add for the men. Obviously, we're probably going to get Seth Rollins, and I don't know who else, and you got to leave room maybe for a surprise. I'm really hoping to see Edge come back as well. Anybody else injured on the shelf right now that we're not thinking of? If WWE does insist on bringing Aleister Black back to TV, that could be a good place for him to go as well. He could be an entrant in the Rumble, but he ain't winning it. So we'll see. Right now, it feels like, Goldberg's going to win the title and Roman is going to retain, but my God, I am just not feeling good about it. I'm very nervous. But like I said, luckily we're going to experience it together because 1 week from tomorrow, I'll be up here live reacting to the Royal Rumble, and we'll all experience it together. So that should finally wrap it up for all of my notes. That was a lot to get into, and already, like I said, 2.5 hours I've been streaming here, so I need to get out of here. Please keep hitting that like button for me if you don't mind. And now I just have a couple of questions for some of you guys who like to stream games and know stuff about video games. As many of you know, I've been thinking about getting on the Twitch platform for a while. But the only problem with this is I'm not a gamer. I'm not a modern gamer. No Xbox for me, no PlayStation. The last console I owned and played was a Super Nintendo and a Sega Genesis. I am 28 years behind, or nearly 30 years behind in games. Never had a GameCube, never had an N64, never had anything beyond those early 90s consoles or late 80s consoles. But I've got, the NES Classic. I've got a Retron 5 that I can play old video games. I have a Genesis, an original NES, and an SNES, all of which I think can possibly be streamed on Twitch. So I'm going to create the Twitch channel to just use as a little, kind of a lifeboat, maybe a little side fun channel to do fun stuff on, because you don't always have to do video games. As I've been navigating myself around the platform and trying to learn it, first of all, do any of the girls wear clothes on that channel at all? That's one thing I noticed. And the second thing I noticed is that there's lots of other things. There's cooking shit on there. There's people doing exercises and working out and yoga and all this other stuff in the IRL section of it or whatever. So I do know that I could come up there, maybe do some watch-alongs, maybe do some live reactions, and maybe do a little bit of retro gaming. I can come up here and play Super Mario Brothers or Double Dragon or NBA Jam or Royal Rumble or WrestleMania, or any games that I grew up with and played as a kid. I can set that up and start streaming them. So I bought some equipment. I've bought an AV to HDMI converter so I can try to play these consoles on my monitor. I've got the game capture. Where the hell is it? I just bought it. I don't know where it is. Anyway, I bought the, oh, there it is. The Elgato. I bought this guy. I haven't even opened it yet, but I've got him. So I know I need this to do it. So I'm going to start working on, you know, setting all of this up. But I just had a couple of questions for you guys in terms of like how some of this works. Now, does anybody know, are there any old school gamers that know the best way to stream old school games, like retro games? Like I said, I think I can hook up my NES Mini, which I also have right there. It's off camera, and I can probably plug that into the Elgato and stream all the games on that. But it doesn't have, like, if I want to play some of my cartridges, I don't know if using, you know, an AV to HDMI output to put it on your monitor or converter is the best way to do it, or if I can even connect this thing. Does anybody know if this thing will connect to a Retron 5? Because that's what the all-in-one emulator that plays actual cartridges. I'm hoping I can hook that up. That would be great. So if anybody knows the best ways to do it, let me know, or anything I might need to know. Otherwise, I'm going to hook that up and start playing with it. Also, there's no issues with, like, am I going to run into any, like, sort of copyright stuff? As far as I know, that's all good. But I thought, you know, I've heard of some gamers being, you know, I've heard some gamers being screwed over, you know, by their channels being suspended or something for, like, playing games because the music is recognized or something or matched. But am I free to play anything I want? Can I play Super Mario Brothers? Can I play any game without any fear? Because this is also something that I could do on YouTube too. You know, just to say, hey, I'm playing some games up here on YouTube. Subscribe to my Twitch channel. We do that over here. It might be a good way to get word out about the Twitch channel. So I just want to make sure that most gamers, when I search around on YouTube and I see people playing games, doesn't look like they have any issues with that at all, but it does make me a little bit nervous. And also, does Twitch have like a premium service? Like on YouTube, I haven't seen an ad on a YouTube video since whenever YouTube Premium started, or YouTube Red. I immediately purchased a subscription and haven't seen an ad since. When I've been searching and surfing around Twitch, I have to watch an ad all the time. So is there any way to eliminate that? Can I pay $10 a month and be a Twitch Premium member and eliminate ads? If anybody has any of this information or any basic sort of information for me, feel free to shoot me a DM on Twitter. A lot of you have. Jacob and Barry and some other people have sent me messages on Twitter before saying, hey, let me know if you need any help or whatever. But a couple of those questions I was just curious about. If people who listen to me do old school or retro gaming, what is your best setup? Do you use the little plug and plays, or do you prefer to use the original consoles? And I don't know, this thing did not look very good. I bought this, it was only $12, which makes me nervous, but it's a little HDMI converter. So, you know, like I can plug in my NES into this, and then it outputs to HDMI that I can plug right into my monitor. What I'm worried about is it's going to look like shit. Because if there was an expensive version of this, I would have bought it, but I could not find anything that was really that expensive. So this was $12. I'm worried that it's a piece of shit, and it might look shitty. So I'm going to play with that tonight. I'm going to start, you know, hooking some stuff up and see what I can do. And hopefully within a couple of weeks, I'll be able to launch a Twitch channel and actually start doing stuff on there, and you guys can follow me and we can hang out. And it'll be a little side project. I won't be able to spend like a ton of time on there, and it'll probably be slow going in terms of growth and stuff. But I feel like I've been only with one platform for way too long, and I should expand my horizons, because I'm the only wrestling person on YouTube that doesn't know anything about video games. I'm the only one that doesn't play video games. Everybody else that I've seen, all of my colleagues, every other podcast and every other YouTube channel that does similar things to what I do, all of them play video games. I'm the only one that doesn't. So you guys are never going to get me into modern games. I'm not buying an Xbox or a PS5 or whatever the fuck. You'll never see me get that. But I would not mind coming up and just streaming some old stuff for fun. Or just randomly talking, having a live stream. We just talk about whatever, and maybe trying to build a channel over there. We'll see. And then if it doesn't work, we'll just, you know, come back to YouTube and do that full time. But I think it would be fun to kind of get on that platform and join some of you over there who are all there and have a good time watching everybody. And a lot of the other YouTube channels and wrestling podcasters, they all have Twitch channels. I'm the only one, you know, that hasn't really gone over there yet. So I have now made some purchases to make that happen. I bought a bunch of HDMI cords and color-coded shit. I'm going to try to wire some stuff together and plug it into my OPS and start doing tutorials and figuring that stuff out. And maybe here in a few days or a week or two, you'll see me up here playing some Mario or something. But I was just kind of curious about if I have anything to worry about in terms of copyright. Obviously, if I ever do a watch along, I'm not going to show, you know, the screen or anything like that. But I just wanted to make sure that just playing games is okay. and I'm not going to have any issue. My main concern with that is YouTube, because I was thinking I might, before the Twitch channel really gets going, I might want to come up here and just play some game, play a wrestling game on the YouTube channel, play WWF Raw from Sega Genesis. I would love to come up and stream that, but I just want to make sure I'm not going to have any issues with copyright music or copyright video or anything like that. I'm really not sure how all of that works. I know how it works on YouTube. I know what to do and what not to do on this channel in terms of wrestling and footage and stuff like that, but the game stuff I'm new to. So if anybody has any sort of basic knowledge, you want to shoot me on Twitter, DM me, and I'd appreciate any help that can be given. But yeah, I'll be up on Twitch soon. We'll start doing that. We'll start having some more fun here. And like I said, between that and on the channel, I would like to start doing some more watch-alongs. I had a blast last week watching that Royal Rumble match, and I think tomorrow, when we react to Royal Rumble 2002, is going to be really fun. So I would be opening, I would be open to eventually, based on my work schedule, my personal life, making that like a weekly segment on the channel where we react to a classic pay-per-view. I really wouldn't mind that at all. It might be fun. So anyway, just my mind turning here, just trying to evolve, trying to do more things on the channel and try to be more out there and more accessible. Beginning of the year, brand new year in 2021, and I want the channel to, evolve a little bit more. So I thought Twitch might be a good way to do that and keep a lookout, I suppose. But anyway, it has now been 2.5 hours, and I'm starting to lose my actual voice. So I'm going to get out of here. Somebody just said I missed a super chat, so let me cruise up and knock that out because I hate it when I miss one. Pisses me off. Who was it? Oh, Tigerzilla. That was you again. Jay White. Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're talking Rumble, right? He's hinted at it. He did hint. I don't know what his contract, though. I know he hinted that he wasn't going to resign. I don't know if he'd be able to go to the Rumble. I don't know how the contracts work, if they have the 30-day stuff or if he's free to go do whatever he wants. But a guy like Jay White, I don't know. I don't think he would get quite the response that AJ got. I don't think. I mean, well, there's no fans in the arena, so it wouldn't matter. But someone like him coming in as a surprise might be better for the audience to see. Like what I loved is back in the day in the takeovers, at the NXT takeovers, when there would always be a new signee in the front row, and then they would be like running a video package or a hype package, and then they'd cut back to the arena, the lights would turn on, and Matt Riddle or Keith Lee or Bobby Roode or whoever would be sitting in the front row, and the fans would go nuts. I would like to see Jay White debut that way, maybe more than the Rumble, but it could be. If you're going to do a surprise, Jay White could be one of them. Definitely think Edge would be too. Jason Bernandez, where am I from? What's my nationality? Born and raised in Antarctica. Swam up here in the 70s. It was very cold. And now I'm American. I'm a white American. No, Barry, I don't have my computer set up. I got a pretty strong computer that should be plenty strong enough to handle this, but I don't play any computer games either. And that's another thing I was wondering, like, because I know there's a lot of, ROM sites that you can play old school games on. And I know it would be really helpful if I did have a modern console, like an Xbox or a PS5 or something. I can probably play and download something that has all those old school games on it, correct? Maybe I could pick up a Nintendo Switch or something that I don't know anything about. But maybe I could purchase a modern console just so I could access older games more easily than trying to work all these old retro consoles. So that is an option, even though I don't want an Xbox or a PS5 or anything like that. If it's easier to do it that way, I'll at least explore it. But I don't want to spend $500 on something that I'm going to play retro games on and not use for anything else. So if I have the little plug-in plays, as long as those will all hook up, I'll play with it. I'm experimenting and doing everything. I'll be able to figure out, what it can and can't do. But as long as I can figure out a way to stream all of the games I have, I think it could potentially be fun. But in terms of my PC, I don't play any games on it at all. Oh, thank you for that, Zane. That's another name, Braun Strowman. I should have mentioned him. So yeah, Seth Rollins, Braun Strowman, and Edge, I feel like are also very big possibilities for the men's Rumble. Yeah, I got you with that. Yeah, maybe like what if I bought like a used old one? Because if I bought it, I would only want it for like old games to download, a bunch of Nintendo games and just play those. So we'll see. It's all part of it. I've started the Twitch account, but I don't have a profile picture up, a banner picture up yet. I haven't subscribed to anybody or followed anybody. It's just a bare bones type of thing. So you can probably find it on Twitch if you search Good Mic Work, but I haven't been officially up with any sort of, I haven't put together my page yet. That's what I'm learning, and that's what I'm trying to figure out to do. So once that's all up and running, I will, I'll let you guys know. Yeah, CJL, here's my problem. I don't know what that means in English. Modded PS Vita is dope. I just suck at stuff like this, so I don't know. So you guys are basically trying to teach quantum physics to a toddler. That's what this is going to be the equivalent of. So I apologize for my complete obliviousness to gaming world and how you do it, but I'll figure it out. I'm smart. Take care, Zane. Appreciate you being here, and that's probably going to do it for me as well. Thanks again, guys, for hanging out for a long-ass podcast today. I knew this was going to be long, but it was a little bit longer than I thought. So you guys take care. Thanks for all the great conversation, the generous super chats, all that stuff. Don't forget, be here tomorrow night after football. We'll be watching Royal Rumble 2002. You got to have the WWE Network for that so you can follow along, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So hopefully you guys can join me tomorrow night for some post-football wrestling watching. You guys have a good rest of your Saturday evening now, and wherever you are, take care, and I will catch you tomorrow.